Does he have it?
Medeiros is going to get it.
They're going to toss it. They haven't got it.
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's caught back into play. Exactly, Miller's still such trouble. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's going to do it. Big Barry!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the VWSC Modern Series here with Champion Motorsports. This is round number 7. We're halfway through the season. And if you haven't realized by now, I am not James Parfit. I am not Mr. JP Broadcasting himself. He is somewhere on a nice little holiday, well-deserved. So we're going to fill in for the 60 laps of Watkins Glen here. Round 7 on the calendar. It's going to be myself. Michael David will be joining shortly. And of course, as always, I know James gives him a hard time, but I have fun. It's Mr. Paul Glover who's going to be running all the fun things you see on your screen today. So enjoy the voices, enjoy the screens, hang out, and we're going to take you through what's surely to be a wet race here in New York at Watkins Glen. Let's talk about the calendar here for just a second as it goes, because we're on round 7. We've gotten through the first 6 rounds of a 13, well, I call it a 14-round season, because you got to count round 0. You always have to count the exhibition race. So we're on the back half of the season. This is where things get fun. From here, we're going to go to 90 minutes of Sao Paulo on the 20th of July, so you got a few weeks to get away to there. And then, of course, a month later, we do 90 minutes at Circuit of the Americas, COTA. Probably the best track there. And I don't say that just as an American, because Watkins Glen is honestly better. 90 minutes of Fuji on the 7th of September, and the Indy 100 on September 28th. 100 laps of Road Atlanta on October 19th, and we round out the season all the way November 9th with 2 hours of Bahrain, which is going to be a fun one here. I think it's going to be fun. So that is going to be your schedule down. Let's go ahead and take a look at the track. It's Watkins Glen. This is a track, if you're a sports car fan, you should know. They've ran Formula 1 races here. They run NASCAR Cup Series here. They run Xfinity. They run the Trans Am Series. There are the Truck Series. IndyCar runs here. It's the bus stop. It's the outer loop. And then you go to the chute. You go through the toe, through the boot, through the heel, back up on the inner loop, and then you kick it back down the main straight. I will tell you from the NARS race, the bus stop and turn 1. And that's where I'm going to leave that, because I'm sure that my statement will be quantified here in just a short amount of time. But that is the track map sorted out. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we are doing today. We're going to look at some of the fun of the keys of the race. Work the slipstream. Work that slipstream. You've got to use the slipstream to pass. Minimize mistakes. And I will say, from watching NARS race, that means passing cars and being passed. And then never give up. 60 laps of the Glen. It's 1:35 in a hypercar for a lap. So you've got plenty of time here in this race. So never give up, never surrender, and remember, you will make it to the end. Let's talk about the strategies, which it's nail the fuel numbers and manage the traffic if you're a hypercar. You've got the medium, the hards. I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of wet tires today, though. We're expecting 20 to 25 minutes to stop. 2 stops expected, and the ARX and the Porsche 963 are really the cars we're looking at. And then, of course, the Tipo is going to be a fun one because it's all-wheel drive and it's raining, so I would not be surprised to see that all-wheel drive hypercar make its way forward, and we'll talk more about some of the different cars as this race goes on. Let's talk about the strategies for the GTs. Keep the tires cool, nail the bus stop, and watch the hypercars. The hypercars move fast around here. The lap delta is about 15 seconds a lap, and you really got to be careful as a GT because those hypercars are going to fly through. We expect the Ferrari, the Mercedes, the Acura, and the Aston Martin, and from what Mr. Ross has told me, it is the Acura and the Aston Martin that are really, really doing this track. 30 to 35 minutes to stop. One stop expected realistically for the GTs. That will be the big question of the day is, will it be one stop? Will everyone nail that right? Let's take a look at the point standings. And this is where things are interesting here. This is your hypercar standings. Dan Kirby up in the lead at 172. Mike Bell at 130 there with Smile Power Racing. Dan Herlock at 128 points. John Uyen, who will not be here today, he is sick, has 100.5 points. And then Tom Lane with 89 points. Michael Dinu was 66. Wouter de Bruin was 66. Timon Suvic was 63. Cameron Barker with 51. And Bradley Sellers is your top 10 of the hypercars with 50 points there, but you can see there's 31 names there. Pick out your favorite driver from your list and go from there. And of course, it is the Isotta Fraschini, the CMS pros of Kirby, Barker, and Uyen, 287.5 points rounding out the team. Smile Power Racing, they're in second place with 259, and the Rookie Monsters in the Peugeot with 131 as your top three teams. The Peugeots. I don't know why I pronounced that like that, but you know what? The Peugeot. There we go. There we go. Mr. Paul Glover in my ear helping me out. But that is your pro standings. Let's take a look at the AM standings as we go through. And this is where things are really fun. You got Jerry Chin and George Angelides and John Mayer, your top three there. Craig Pullen in fourth, Eric Monet in P5, Scar Pope in sixth, Norm Graff in seventh, Benjamin Porteous Heath in P8, Adam Gray and Jason Whited in the top 10 there. But of course, there's 19 cars. Find your favorite driver on the Hypercar AM standings and you see where they're at. And of course, it is the Mistral Porsche 963s up in the team leading with a pretty good points lead there, 60 points on the HRC US Acuras, and then Reptile Racing Porsche 963s there in third place in the Hypercar AMs. It's a fairly close fight there, and of course, we're halfway through the season. No clear winners in the Hypercar Pro or AM yet. Plenty of time for them to settle that out. Let's look at the GT3s as it goes through, and of course, it is David Junt there in the lead, P2. JT Tammy, Matthew Overton in third. James Walker there in fourth. Eliseo Neto in P5. Kyle Vessa in P6. Brandon Gant, P7. Johnny Gutierrez in P8. Becky Ely, she finds her way up in ninth place. And Yuki Takanashi in the top 10. And of course, there's 28 GT3 cars. Find your favorite driver on the list, and that is where they're at. Dark Thunder Racing and the Aston Martin is P1. And the Ford Mustang GT3 is P2 with Kyle Vessa and Gant. And then, of course, the Simples Ferrari 296 there in third place. It's still a fairly close battle through. I do see that David Junt has a bit of a jump there, but that doesn't always guarantee itself. And of course, the Aston Martin strong here, so we could come out of the Glen with the points looking a little bit different. Let's look at the AMs here. You got 12 GT3 AMs as it sits, and it's Matthew Bice, who is up in P1 with 172 points. Stephen Miller with 139. Stephen Bice with 134, and Mike Bice at 133, Josh Lepetri at 131, Filippo Marazzi, James Bowders, Matt Bice, Ryan Reyes, and Roland Hagernaz is your top 10 there, and of course Carl Strohan and Jel Hagen, your top 12 in the GT3 standings. And of course Trash Panda Racing at the top of the team with Speed Details being the second team through. But the Bice family, very dominant here in the GT3s, but Stephen Miller's putting a good run on them, so we'll see how the GT3 AMs shape up today here at Watkins Glen. And with that being said, that's your points, that's your intro, that's your run through. And we do, of course, have the man, the legend himself, Mr. Ross Smith. Ross Smith, good evening, good afternoon, sir. How are you today?
Hey, thanks for having me in here. Doing good. How are you guys?
Not too bad, not too bad. Let's talk about qualifying and let's talk about the race. First off, it's a good day to be a Duck in upstate New York here. It seems like the rain is off and on, and from what I know, looking at the weather and the radar, the rain is about to come back with a little bit of a vengeance.
Yeah, for sure. It's we don't always get rain races, especially with George on track, so this is kind of a treat. And the way that you see qualifying right now, where everyone is on the grid, it's going to move around a lot. And I can say that with confidence after seeing how the race went on Thursday at the sister series in NARS. And it's just the conditions being what they are. I know that every one of these drivers, they can be very quick, maybe for a lap or two in these conditions, and some of them maybe not for a whole stint, especially as the tires fall off. And with the way that the rain keeps coming and going, it's just going to make absolute chaos on the track. So you got to have quick hands and quick minds to be able to navigate through this thing and get to the top.
What were the lessons from Thursday for you? I know talking to Paul kind of pre-broadcast, there was, and my experience watching NARS, of course, there was, Hypercar and GT3 chaos, a lot of lap traffic issues going through. So you mentioned the quick hands, quick minds. What are your lessons there going into this race, especially as the GT3 who has to watch out for the Hypercars?
It's so from the GT3 side, it's certainly paying attention to when you have hypercars coming up. You don't have to worry about traffic quite as much, but it definitely comes into play, and you want to try and time that as well as you can and work with the hypercars to get them through where it's going to work the best for your situation. I mean, that could be said pretty much everywhere, but it's kind of special here at Watkins Glen because it's fast. Like I said before, it's a little bit like Spa in that you feel like you have more space than you do, but when you get into those critical braking zones, because of how fast some of these corners are, it can make a big difference as to how you come out of them, as opposed to just very quick point and shoot corners where you can kind of really slip a hypercar through and come out without much time loss. There are opportunities, unfortunately, where you can lose a ton of time, and for both parties. So both sides really need to watch that. But I would say that car and resource management is really going to be on top for this one, because coming out of that race, in the NSX, I pulled a little bit of a asymmetrical strategy and only changed the rear axle, and it actually worked out really well. I wasn't able to chase down the Astons. They were just way too far up the road. The car is just way too stable for this type of track, and it just doesn't burn off tires like the rest of the field. But I was chasing down the Mercedes, and they did not take tires, and it became very evident as the time went on. I mean, those H1 brand tires, you have to treat them with respect. If you abuse them early on, if you heat them up, they will bite you back. They won't tolerate that. So those who are able to manage their cars the best, I think, are going to see overall the best results. And those who can be bold and do that at the same time while navigating the weather, it'll benefit them absolutely the most.
Yeah, and looking at strategy, I know that it says looking forward that the GT3s are really looking at just one stop. Based on your experience Thursday, is that accurate, or do you think there might be a little bit of a splash and dash run at the end?
Oh no, it's going to be longer. I mean, we can go probably about 40 minutes or so under these conditions. And for as wet as it is, the hypercars are going to be circulating slower, because initially it was looking like might end around 100 minutes, but with as wet as it is, I'm going to guess it's going to be closer to 2 hours. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, we'll definitely be having a couple stops.
Okay. What sort of balances have you done going in here at Storm Gang? Any changes going into this race that we need to be aware of?
Actually, yeah, George put out a late update. Unfortunately, just because of travel and real life circumstances dealing with Honda Racing, it's kind of set things back a little bit later than he'd like. But all the traction control for at least the hypercars, I think maybe the GT3's got it too, but that's been tuned up, so you don't have as much of a breakaway kind of scenario. This is actually something we've gone into deep detail with, but the long and short of it is, when you load up the rears especially, and you've got traction control really high, and this is like a wet or very used tire scenario, it can break the traction control, and you end up just suddenly having no grip. And so they actually deal with that in real life. He said that there's been a lot of mitigation that's had to happen on the real cars across the entire garage for the hypercars that is that exact scenario. So it's kind of cool to see that we're dealing with it kind of on the same level. So he's effectively kind of smoothed out the traction control mapping in a way that it will allow the rears to not do that so suddenly. Like you're gonna see that it can hold on, and certainly the way the hypercars have been driving, especially over curbs, that's where it strikes the most. They'll be a little bit more stable, so there'll be more confidence, and they'll be able to stay consistent with that.
Awesome. And then looking at that change link, any big changes in the GT3s that we need to be aware of? I don't see anything off the top of my head looking at it.
No. There's they're pretty much as they were. There is talk about BOP. We're going to see how results fare today. I mean, with the weather, it can skew results, but that's certainly going to be factored as we do with every race, and about every 2 to 3 races, we say, okay, we're gonna review and make changes as necessary. But we've mostly been focused on getting test mules ready for the testing team, so when it comes for the 2025 mod, the testers will have tons of time to really nail things. For next year, all of the GT3s that are running as studio cars right now will be replaced by Storm Gang cars. So this will be, in 2025, the first season where every single car on the grid will be a proprietary car that we've developed from the ground up. So we want to make sure that testers have a lot of time with them, get the BOP really nailed down, especially after all that we've seen through this season. And it'll make it one of the best seasons as we get into next year. And of course, by the end of the year, I'll be able to actually switch back in, clean up those cockpits, really refine a lot of the exterior components, and touch the sound. So you guys will have a lot more going on in the booth that you can really sink your teeth into from a visual perspective.
You know, you mentioned BOP, and I'm going to ask this because I've thought this since day one. Isn't it kind of normal, even though every car is kind of balanced to be even, that there's a certain car that shines at a track compared to others? Like, for example, the Aston in the dry is strong here. I don't know if it's the same in the wet, but isn't it normal that certain cars fare at certain tracks better to others? Like, where is the line for you with the BOP?
Well, you're 100% correct. It varies track to track, condition to condition, and everyone is just trying to find exactly the formula that makes sense. And you look at the real world series, the IMSA and WEC, they struggle with this race to race, and you see the teams complain, they'll push back on things even though they have a hand in the process. So it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it is something that we have a lot tighter control over, and it's something that we're investing a lot of time and development into, so that way we get it right. So that way, at least when everyone goes through, they can say, I feel like this is a fair competition. And we're really close on that right now. I mean, no one's, I kind of rag on the Aston a little bit, and a lot of that has to do with because of its Studio 397 proclivities. But I mean, I got to give the testers and the development team credit, because they really have brought a lot of parity to it. And when you look at what a lot of other modding groups or even the developer itself have put out, we've got these things closer than I think you can say than any other car pack that's out there, short of League Edition packs that just use the exact same physics and everything for every single car. It's just a model switch.
I will give you credit that this is, for the variances in the cars, it seems like everyone at Storm Gang has really nailed down the specifics of each car's pros and cons and making it very fairly balanced. Now, Aston really strong in the dry. Will they be strong in the wet today?
They should be. I mean, a lot of that carries over. It's just an easy car to drive in terms of it's predictable. It's just strong in a lot of different areas, but it is just because it's fast and comfortable that it's able to be driven to the limit a lot more consistently. And that's why you see a lot of the faster drivers gravitate towards it, because they just want that edge. They don't really, like a JT Tammy, an Ernest Bernaldo, an Eduardo Beninca, they don't really have any loyalties to brand. Like you see, George Angelides, who's always going to go to Acura or Ferrari if, there are no Acuras or anything, because he's got to represent. But those guys don't care. They just want that edge. Anything that they can pick up another 10th around the circuit, they're going to do it.
James would absolutely yell at me if I didn't ask too. How's the historic development going at Storm Gang for next season?
It's going really great. I actually have a lot of recorded footage for the release video that we'll be doing. Not of the cars itself yet, but getting closer to that. Right now we're in the test mule phase, so it's a lot of alpha development. John Uyan and George Angelides, they're working on the cars and getting them so that way they're all balanced and set up to hand off to the testers. And once they're there, which should probably be over the next week or two, then it's just testing, and getting the cars developed so we can make pretty liveries and we can really put them in front of the camera and say, here you go. Probably by Thanksgiving, you guys will see that.
I'm going to ask. I'm not going to ask you to tell me what it is, but I'm going to ask, will you promise me that you're going to tell me before you tell James?
I think chances are very strong for that happening.
I'll take it. Ross, I'm going to let you go because it looks like it's getting ready to be time for you to get behind the wheel here. So we'll let you go. As always, we appreciate it. And hopefully we get to talk to you soon. What's the goal for the race today?
Stay on the surface, the track surface, and just maximize points and have fun.
Have fun is always the goal. But Ross, we always appreciate it. And thank you. And we will hopefully get to talk to you later today.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
Thanks. See you, Ross. All right, that's enough of me droning on. Let's bring in Mr. Michael David. Michael, welcome to the VWSC for your first stream here with CMS Racing and VWSC. Give me your impressions so far as a first-timer here in the series, watching just the practice, watching the qualifying. How do you feel?
Oh, just the time that everybody puts into these cars is absolutely mind-boggling to me. Let's go ahead and go through the starting order if you want, Bradley.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump in the starting order as we go through, and it is Dan Kirby, Ben Kesby, Yuki Takanashi, and Cameron Barker, your top four. And then from there, of course, we do have the next set of rows going through, even though they're not going in order on down the main straight. Michael Locke, Timon Subic, George Angelides, and Craig Pullen going to be your top eight. From there, we're going to be looking at P9, which is going to be Mr. Scar Pope, Troy Uyan, John Uyan not racing, but Troy is, Jerry Chin, Eric Monet, and P12. From there, we're going to be looking at P13, which is going to be John Mayer, Bradley Sellers, Daniel Scott, Brian Hall, getting you into P16. From there, we're going to be looking at P17, which is going to be, drumroll please, Norm Graff, Dan Herlock, Ernest Bonaldo, and Jason Whitehead, your top 20 rounding out today. From there, we're going to be into P21, which is going to be Luke Goodlife. From there, it's Aliko Busanik, it is Eduardo Benica, and it is Benjamin Porteous Heath in P24. From there, we are going to be going into P25, which is going to be Valis Katernakis, JT Tammy, David Junt, Ross Smith, of course, in P28 overall as we pace our way around this Watkins Glen wet track. Johnny Gutierrez, William Schlichting, and Robert Strachan, and Jamie Zalecki, P32. We still got plenty more cars to go through. Bear with us just a moment here. Adrian Rice, Matthew Bice, James Walker, and Josh Lepetri into P36 as we start getting into the GT3 AMs as we go through. P37 is Pierre Moreno, and then it is Gilles Lalonde, it is Wayne Galvin, it is Alexander McQuarrie into P40. Just a few more cars. Stephen Miller, Stephen Bice, Mike Bice, Carl Strohal, and then from there, we are looking at, I believe, just a couple more cars as we have a 47 car field. James Bowders, Tom Lane, and Joe Wilkes. Looks like Tom Lane very out of place there in the Porsche 963, way in the back. But as we pace our way through, we get ready for the green flag. I do want to point out that John Uyan, they have switched to the Porsche 963, so Daniel and Cameron will be in the 963 through. So they were talking about the Alpine they went over, and Mr. Reese is in YouTube chat, and Stacy Scott's game is in YouTube chat. We got everybody here. We've got the split starts as we're pacing our way through. It's wet. Michael, this is going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, no, this is going to be very exciting. I'm eager to see the first laps that the hypercars come up on the GT3 cars, because as we've seen in practice, as we saw in qualifying, there is a very distinct racing line that gets dried out very quickly. Everything outside of that line is extremely wet, extremely loose, so it's going to be very touch and go for the first couple times that the hypercars come through the GT3 field.
Yeah, that first time through is going to be the most nerve-wracking for me. And as we come through here, it is going to be Dan Kirby in the Porsche 963 who will take us under the green flag for 60 laps of the Watkins Glen here on CMS Racing with the JP Broadcasting Network and we are up through underway, and this is going to be the fun. Down in the bottom right corner, thanks to the wonderful help of Paul Glover, is your GT3 field who will be coming through the line. And you see it's single file. It's very slippery. They're all underway. The orange zone is all the way past the bus stop through the outer loop into the chute of the boot. So you're going to see everybody be very timid and cautious. I don't see anything too wild going on, but it is single file. It's action. It's Dan Kirby, Ben Kesby, Yuki Takanashi, and Cameron Barker with Michael Locke, your top 5 hypercars as they go through. Jordan J. Angelidis is leading the hypercar AMS. In the bottom right corner, it is your GT3 class, and that is being head up by Eduardo Benica, with Katernakis back behind and JT Tammy, and they are going through. But look at the slides that the hypercars are getting on as we go down. We are now officially out of the orange zone. We're into the boot. We're going towards the toe. This is where the action's going to start. And look at the slide behind Michael Locke there.
Yeah, this is going to be very, very touch and go here on this first lap, even once they get their tire temperatures into place. Looks like we got a couple yellows in Sector 1. I'm not sure what's going on with that yet. Probably something going on with our GT3 cars. But yeah, this is actually very clean. You see the slide. You see everybody kind of looking for that traction, but nobody up front here has really had too many difficulties getting through this first lap here, so it looks like everybody's coming through nice and clean. I do see another yellow there pop up on the screen. Not quite sure what that was yet, but expect to see a couple little incidents here and there. Nothing crazy, nothing big yet as we come around for our first lap.
Yeah, first lap underway here, and I did see someone run very wide in the background through the heel, but I didn't see anything too wild. But first lap time is in after a rolling start of 1:48. So that 90 minutes of racing I was expecting, probably closer to 2 hours, as Ross said, as we go through. Turn 1 is pretty dangerous. Here is where your replays are going to start coming in. Let's look at what some of those yellow flags from lap 1 are. Stephen Miller here in the GT3s and just misses the braking zone. Bit of a bump there from one of the bices and goes through. And then he snaps on the curb and comes around there, and that is not the way to start your lap 1. Lap 1, turn 1. You can always lose a race there, but you'll never win the race there. We're back underway here into the bus stop, and the hypercars nice and cautious for the most part. I did see side by side there into the bus stop. Maybe not the best decision early on, but we'll see how it plays out for everyone. I like that we have the boot. I know that some people really don't like the boot. I really like the boot, Michael.
Yeah, I absolutely love the boot as we see another replay here, and it looks like the GT3 cars. And yeah, big incident there, getting really wide there coming out of, was that Herlock we're looking at, going all the way off into the gravel there. Yeah, that was definitely a tough incident there, but it looks like he's able to continue on. And away we go as we take a look here at Michael Locke coming through here. Looks like it's coming out of the boot.
Yeah, he looks comfortable there, mostly comfortable. You can tell that all of the drivers are conserving a bit. You can really tell that the drivers that are up front are really backing out a little bit. They're trying to hold a little bit more in the tank right now, and it's pretty treacherous conditions, honestly. We saw with Le Mans, of course, when the rain came in, we ran a bunch of time under safety car. We ran more time under safety car than the Alpines were on the track, which hopefully won't be the situation today for Yuki Takanashi in P3, trying to hold off Cameron Barker in the Porsche. But we'll see how that goes there as we have a battle for the GT3s in the bottom right. That is going to be Schlichting there, trying to battle on. Schlichting, a very fast driver in the GT3s, raced Thursday in the NARS, and now is here for your Saturday evening, and is, showing some really good pace. Really, really consistent driving and good car control.
Yeah, that was Johnny Gutierrez that he was fighting there in the Mustang. The Mustang's going to be very strong down the straight. They have the best top speed here with the GT3 cars. So coming out of turn 1 into the S's and down that straight into the bus stop, you're going to see that Mustang have a lot of advantage in the GT3 cars.
Yeah, one of the things that I like is that one of the things Storm Gang has done, and I mentioned this with Ross a few minutes ago, but they've done very well at balancing, but every car keeping their characteristics of what they're strong at. And of course, we have, the inside knowledge of what cars are good at what here in the background, and it makes life a little bit easier for all of us as we watch. So you do have those Mustangs who are much faster. You have the Aston Martin that's more compliant, and you have all of these cars that they do very well at certain things. And Watkins Glen, of course, is the track that caters to the balance of the Aston Martin, to the balance of the NSX. So it doesn't surprise me to kind of see them running forward. Watching the Alpine and the Porsche battle here in Hypercar, this is again still Takanashi battling it out with Cameron Barker. They are separated by just a rate of knots as they go through. They come out of that final corner. In that final corner, you see the yellow line. That is the traditional pit entry line. You would go for the pit entry before the final corner and you'd hug that inside line. Of course, that is enforced in real life. It's not enforced in sim. So you'll see those guys. Oh, big slide there from Cameron Barker. Cameron Barker doing well to keep the car pointed right. But that's the dangers of the curbs and the slick conditions in the rain, even though they do have their rain tires on.
Yeah, turn one's difficult and dry, especially that curb. That curb is so tall, it just unsettles the car no matter what kind of car you're in. You got to be very careful on that curb. Just imagine that times 10 right now with all the wet. Yeah, sure, those cars are running rain tires, but that's not going to solve all your problems. But he was very, very, very wise to keep it out of the inside barrier there. Excellent fight we have going on here in GT3, though. Looks like we've got a couple more cars coming in. This is going to be our P2, P3, P4 battle. It looks like we have Vasilis Katarinakis, David Junt, and JT Tammy all battling it out there, and that is an off there for the Alton. Ross Smith in the background, and we take a look here. Vasilis Katarinakis in that GT3 Aston Martin. He has his hands full completely with David Junt in that Acura NSX. We've seen these two cars be extremely powerful. As we see another yellow in Sector 1, we're going to be seeing yellow flags all day long, aren't we, Bradley?
Yellow flags aren't going to stop as this race goes on. Just the hope is nothing too major, but I'm looking here in the GT3s. Eduardo Benica, Aston Martin GT3. Vasilis Katarinakis, Aston Martin Vantage. David Junt, Acura NSX. JT Tammy, Aston Martin Vantage. Ross Smith, Acura NSX. William Schlichting, Aston Martin Vantage. So if you wonder what two manufacturers are dominating here in GT3s, well, it's Aston Martin and it's Acura. I don't think I need to really prove my point any further, but there you go. The top six all holding on between the Acura and the Aston Martin. The Mustang there in 7th. You do have Benjamin Porteous-Heath showing as a DNF. We'll see if we can find out what happened to him in a moment, but I don't want to cut away from this battle here of David Junt and Katarinakis, because they are putting pressure. Look at this. David Junt up the inside. Can he make the stick? A little bit of door-to-door contact. This is these are GT3s. This isn't NASCAR. Guys, as we go through, and look who is there in P4 as well. JT Tammy there in the blue and yellow. Aston Martin is going to continue to just catch up slowly but surely. Now JT Tammy wants to look up the inside. Not close enough to make it stick there as we come through. And now we go into the final corner. And JT Tammy with a deep dive up the inside. Couple wheels on the grass. Holds on to it. But man, there was not space and he wanted to make space.
Yeah, that door was always going to be shutting on the front end of his car, so it was definitely a brave move, but able to back out, thankfully, as we see these cars coming into that tricky turn 1. Man, it is tough for them to keep the line on the inside of that curve. These cars are really struggling with turn 1 as we see another battle here. Cameron Baker and, Ben Kesby. They touch, but they're able to hold on, and that's going to bring Yuki Takanashi into this battle. Yuki up into 3rd place. Cameron Baker able to hold on there. I'm not sure how, but that was very, very sketch as we get a replay here.
Yeah, this is going to be the replay of what happened to Benjamin Porteous-Heath, and runs wide up the hill. And did he beach the... It looks like he beached it, and Paul, of course, our in-ear reporter, telling us he was struggling before that, so it could be possible that Benjamin Porteous-Heath just calling it a day, saying, you know what, this race isn't my week, and letting it go. James Bowders, Daniel Scott. So we've had 3 DNFs in just a handful of laps here, and of course, we're lap 7 of 60 as it goes through. Dan Kirby in the lead by 11 seconds. has just taken off here. Cameron Barker and Yuki Takanashi, P2, P3 here on your screen. Watch back in the background there. Ben Kesby in P4 will continue to try to slowly reel these cars in and keep things going and moving. But I tell you what, for only 7 laps in, it's been exciting. There's plenty of close battles all the way through the field.
Yeah, this has been very exciting. We haven't even seen the hypercars really catch the back end of the GT3s yet, so that's going to get even more treacherous as we go through here. Lap 7, though, for the most part, we have seen a ton of battles, but everything has been nice and clean. Everybody's been able to hang on for the most part. So good, clean racing right now. And I just want to jump back to the amazing job that Storm Gang does with these cars. They're just able to like really work on the BOP for each one of these. Yeah, we're seeing the Aston Martin and the Acura really, as Vasilis Katernaskis is really having issues with that turn 1. Lost his position. We've seen him go wide there quite a few times, and this time David Jun is able to take advantage and take over P2. Let's see if he's able to kind of take a little bit of a run now and just gap that car a little bit. But Vasilis Katernaskis is really having a tough time with turn 1.
Yeah, if we can get it on board with turn 1. Here's the thing with turn 1 is it's downhill braking into a right-hander, 90-degree right-hander. It's a very, very challenging turn, and with the rain in traffic, it helps none, especially when you're trying to fight people off here. As David Junt, you see the car a little swirly here as we run down into the chute. We're going to hit this left-hander, head towards the toe, hold on to it. And then everyone is struggling for grip out there. Grip is at a premium. Grip is very, very much non-existent out there today, just like air conditioning is non-existent most of the time. It is very, very hard for these guys to run through. They're doing a good job of keeping it on track. The lap times, though, are reflecting it. I mean, I'm looking at the lap times for Dan Kirby and Cameron Barker, 1:50, 1:48 last lap. And the GTs are only about 10 seconds behind there. Oh, there's another slide again coming in from Katernaskis. So, I mean, they're doing well to keep the car on the track. It's challenging out there. I don't know how else to say that. It's just challenging.
Yeah, this is definitely a mental battle. These drivers are going to be mentally fatigued as well as physically fatigued after this race. This is going to be a lot to think about per every single corner you have in the back of your mind. Whether you're going to have traction on exit or not, you got to be very careful with that throttle. Yeah, sure, keep going back to the fact that they have rain tires, but the rain tires are only going to get you so far. There is going to be standing water. There is going to be, with the elevation change here, there's going to be, little rivers that run across that are going to catch you off right there as we see Vasilis Katernaskis not getting as far out wide, but still having an issue with turn 1. This has been the bane of his existence so far in the first 9 laps of this race.
Well, and the thing is, too, Katernaskis is having to drive in his rear mirror as much as he's trying to drive looking ahead. And the thing is, with him trying to keep 2 cars behind, David Junt has started to open up the gap there. Even though David Junt to Benica is 7 seconds, you can see, there's a runoff there from, I believe that was Schlichting, who just decided to not really hit the bus stop and had to take through the grass. So, big moment there for Schlichting. He's going to lose a little bit of time there, but with the way this battle between Katernaskis and JT Tammy is going, he's going to very quickly close that gap again because Katernaskis he needs to really just look ahead, focus on driving ahead and going, but JT Tammy is keeping him honest corner after corner as we get a replay here, and this is going to be that bus stop moment. Just missed it.
Never able to really get that turned into the bus stop. He has to just let off and go into the grass. He loses a lot of time there, but luckily, he's able to keep it out of the walls. And it looks like we are going to go ahead and take a look here as Vasilis Katernaskis has lost that position to JT Tammy.
Yeah, JT Tammy. I knew Katernaskis was struggling a bit, and JT Tammy just is making that Aston work a bit better than the Aston is for Katernaskis. Let's look here, because this is where we're going to start seeing chaos. Look at this. This is the Hypercars. There's a big contact in the background. Who was that? That was big, whoever that was. There's Angelitas. There's Jerry Chin.
I think they were able to save themselves. But yeah, this is the fear that I was going to have is once these hypercars come into the GT3 field, you have to kind of go offline in certain places. And the track, well, you can kind of see it here. The track is drying out in the racing line, but that's just throwing all the water off the line. So when these GT3 cars are in the way, these hypercars have to go offline. They're going to lose a ton of grip. I think it's going to be advantage to the cars that have the all-wheel drive, but it's going to be a disaster waiting to happen no matter what.
Yeah, this is going to be very scary because here's the thing. In a hypercar, you've got to get around the GT3, but the GT3 doesn't want to compromise their race to let a hypercar through. So you're going to have a very, very interesting moment. Is Troy Uyen has had some sort of a problem here. Let's see if we can get a quick replay. Of course, John Uyen watching on the sidelines. Troy! So Troy was the one who took the bump, trying to go 3 wide, coming out of the boot. You can see there as we get this replay, he's there, and then all of a sudden he ends up 3 wide. The outside, that can't tell who that hypercar in the middle was, trying to avoid the GT3. And I just don't think he knew that Troy was there on the inside. And Troy now dropping back into P21 overall in the pits. He's going to be dropping back a bit. We'll see how he does and where he comes out. Of course, still plenty of time. Only lap 10 of 61. Plenty of racing left to go here. But you can see from the Mustang is just running wide, trying to avoid the hypercars. Doesn't want to be caught out in any sort of a mess. But then you have the hypercars slowing up for the GT3s. It's opening the door for hypercars to try to pass. And then you end up with situations like what Troy was in, where you're 3 wide out of nowhere, and you get sent into a wall. As we see 3 wide just off the edge of your screen there. I mean, man, these guys are racing hard for the conditions.
Yeah, this is extremely tough battling throughout the field here. These hypercars are not giving an inch, and the GT3 cars are just holding their own ground. So this is definitely a recipe here for some convoluted racing. But everybody's trying to get through cleanly. It's just an unfortunate situation there for you on there. But this is going to be tough for everyone, really. Look at the spray coming off the back of these cars. It's going to be tough just to see.
Yeah, there is a reason that I do not race. There is a reason that I have retired my time to the booth, and it is because I do not have the confidence for this. You've got to have a lot of confidence and you got to have the cojones, really, to be sending this through the way they are. I mean, they're not really lifting. They're driving hard in the rain, and the rain is letting up, but then you start getting tricky mix conditions, which makes it that much harder. And I am not the driver for these conditions. I will sit in the booth and commentate it all day. If I'm out on track, I'm running probably 15 seconds slower than the leaders. Kudos to all of these racers that are here, all 47 of them that showed up today. I mean, I'm not the one.
Yeah, and we're not even 100% sure. The rain might be letting up now, but last time I looked at the weather forecast, there was going to be some more that came through. Yeah, it looks like the rain is letting up, but there's plenty more coming up from behind. So it's not going to be a dry track by any means at any time today, I don't believe. We still have, another 50 laps to go? I don't think we're going to see a single dry lap run here. I'd be very surprised if we even get anywhere near the dry tires. The slicks, if you will.
Yeah, I think this is just a case of things kind of cooling off for a little bit. I'm looking at the weather radar. Of course, here in our Factor 2, we are running the simulation of real-life weather, and if you look at the weather radar, it is just, it's pockets of storms everywhere. While I do think the heaviest bit has passed us, we still have light rain that's going to be coming in off and on for a while. So it's one of those where it's like, a lot has passed, but there's still a lot more coming. So don't expect dry tires. If you're a fan of dry tires, just hold your breath and let it go. So we'll see how things go. We're 12 of 61 already, and every time I look up, I wince a little bit because I'm just seeing this pocket of hypercar with GT3 mix, and I'm waiting on things to smooth out a little bit, and I don't know if it will.
Yeah, we see everybody up into our GT3 leader has been lapped in the by the hypercars. So this is a replay that we see here.
See, this is gonna be our oh, and that is Craig Pullen with a moment there, but you could see just how dangerous it is as a hypercar trying to get around a GT3.
Was that the
it's
same
not
Mustang that we saw earlier involved?
I kind of think it was.
Oh, that was the same. Okay, so we didn't get to see the third car off in the background there. So, okay.
Yeah, it was.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was
You're right.
Craig
I
Pullen there
apologize.
that was in the mix. So that's where things go. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you're wondering, there is still a wonderful Paul Glover in the ear hole. Of course, James isn't yelling at him. I'm not going to yell at him, but just remember there is always a Paul Glover in the ear hole. So that is
something
where
I
we
gotta
get
remember. Y'all cannot hear him, but I can. So that's my apologies there. As we see another moment there, Herlock and Sovic getting very close. Looks like Sovic has gotten through and Herlock has lost out, but that was a very, very, very big moment between the two hypercars there for 6th and 7th place.
And you see Dan Herlock flashing the headlights at Timon Subic, kind of just saying like, what was that even about? I mean, it was like Timon didn't even know he was there and just jerked the car to the right. That was a scary moment, but Dan Herlock is going to be very, very quickly trying to catch back up here. They've gotten through the majority of traffic they're going to need to get through for the time being. So we'll see them continue to move through. We're only lap 13 of 61. Fireworks everywhere. Of course, the 4th of July next week here in the United States, and these guys are celebrating a little bit early.
Looks like we're going to get a replay of that incident. And we are going to see these two cars get very close. Oh, okay. It looks like Timon Subic had to back out, and that's what put Daniel Herlock right there on his side. Not really any place for Timon Subic to go, and Herlock has gotten that place back. So I'm not sure if Timon gave it up or if Daniel Herlock was just able to make the pass just on pure pace there. But very, very, very interesting moment between the two of them.
These drivers usually do very well about knowing when they've made the error and they need to kind of switch things back. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was a little bit of Timon being like, I cleared myself, I wasn't clear, sorry about that. And through here, as we see Ross Smith, Adrian Rice battling things out here on your screen. And now we have Mike Bice and Pierre Moreno. And this is a Porsche with the Trash Panda Racing Corvettes. And I love that all the Bice family runs Trash Panda Racing Corvettes. I absolutely love it because the Corvette is a car that I don't think gets enough love. And the fact that they do so well here, it makes me quite happy here. But Pierre, there in 4th place, has some pretty good pace in the Porsche. The Porsche isn't a car that I would think would do well in the wet conditions, but he seems to be catching up, Pierre, there to Mike Bice and trying to just catch up and get close enough for a pass, is being very, very cautious, but does seem to have more pace. So we get another replay coming up here, and this is George Angelidis. Oh, George, what have you done? And George Angelidis missing the bus stop. Going through, and then, man, compromise. He's holding on the inside. That's the number 47 to the outside. He's on the inside there. He's trying to hold on. Yeah, that is John Mayer there trying to hold on, and it looks like in the end he does. So that's your daily reminder. That's your lap by lap reminder. Don't mess up the bus stop.
Yeah, that bus stop is going to come out and bite you no matter what. You have to get that right every single time. The curbs there will get you. The inside wall will get you. Just taking that too fast will hurt your exit. The bus stop is probably, in my opinion, the most crucial part of this track. Is you have that long run down into the bus stop, but if you get the bus stop run, it just ruins the rest of your lap. You see Pierre Moreno has gotten by Mike Bice, so that Porsche is doing very well in these treacherous conditions, and we see, he's up into 3rd place. That is for his class, and that is the GT3 AM class there for 3rd place there.
Yeah, he's got 15 seconds to catch back up to LePetri, so we'll see as the race goes if he can do that. We're a quarter of the way through race distance now. Lap 15 of 60 is here, and the hypercars are starting pit stop cycles. Kesby's into the pits, which is interesting. I wasn't thinking that Kesby would be in this early, but we're lap 15, and it looks like maybe a little bit of a strategy game going on there in Hypercar to see where things go. Scar Pope is in as well there in Hypercar AMS. So we'll see where things go. The track time is coming down. Cameron Barker, fastest lap of the race last lap, 1:46.9 to a 1:47.1. on Dan Kirby, but Yuki Takanashi with a 148.5 and 149s from Bradley Sellers. So the times are very spread out, but the times are coming down. I gotta ask, when do we think the crossover period is? I don't think we're anywhere near a crossover period, Michael, to go back into any sort of dry tire. But the issue is, too, that even if the track does dry up, as we see Michael Locke trying to get a quick pass around a GT3 up the inside and trying to make that stick, that is the number 97 Aston Martin. And if you're wondering, that is JT Tammy. That is your P3 overall in GT3s. And man, look at that. They are feisty trying to fight their way through.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see the slick tires at all today. We know we got a little bit more weather coming through. That track is not anywhere near a crossover point yet, so I think it's just going to be rain tires for the rest of the race, and it's going to be very challenging no matter what they do, because even if the rain that we know that we're going to get isn't very heavy, it's going to be still kind of tough to really figure out. I don't think that it's really going to dry out enough for us to get to slicks. So the only thing that we might see is that outside line get a little drier, which is going to help the GT3 cars. Help the hypercars get around the GT3 cars. Tom Lane and Mika Locke is going into the pits, so that was not really a pass for position like we thought it was originally, but definitely seeing these hypercars come in a little bit earlier than we thought, Bradley.
Yeah, it's kind of looking through at race time and race distance. I was going to give them a few more laps, honestly, but I think there could be just a little bit of, decisions being made in terms of late race stage, because the thing is, you do have to remember, even though this is a counted lap race as opposed to 90 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever it may be, these cars are running an endurance race still. You're still running that endurance race mindset, so you do need to think about that a little bit, even though you're running to a lap counter and not a time. And you can kind of think about, well, what if I pit a little bit earlier, and maybe that'll set me up where near the end my laps will be okay, because we're only a quarter race distance. So I would expect to see some of these hypercars that have done these early stops stay out fairly late into the race here. But I'm really interested to see when this race leader, Dan Kirby, decides he wants to pit in.
Yeah, and I do want to point out real quick that Josh Lepetri has run the fastest GT3 lap, so the GT3 times are coming down as well. Lepetri running a 157.589 there just a moment ago, so that looks like it is, the fastest, unless I'm mistaken there. Yeah, no, a 157.589, that is your fastest GT3 time so far. So even the GT3 times are coming down, but I still don't think that we're anywhere near a crossover point.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you as I look at the radar. I don't expect a crossover point to happen in this race. So if you're looking for dry tire running, this might not be the race for you, but that doesn't mean go anywhere. You need to stick around for a while, because this race is very, very good. We've got yellow flags going on all over the place here as we run through. Watch Timon Subic with Tom Lane in the background. Tom Lane running kind of an a la carte Spike livery, honestly, in my head, as we see one of the Bice brothers there around the outside. I don't remember if they're brothers, but the term Bice brothers just rolls off the tongue so well, and if I'm wrong, they can correct me after the fact, so I'll stop saying Bice brothers. But the Bice brothers running through, and this is going to be Matthew Bice. This is the dangers of the bus stop.
And he was in the lead, too, of his, what was it, the GT3 AMs, I believe he was in the lead of, so that's definitely going to hurt his time. I believe he had a 13-second lead, somewhere in that ballpark.
He did have a lead, of course. Pit stop cycles, he has hit, and then Pierre Moreno and Josh Lepetri have not hit. So while it doesn't say he's on the lead on track, technically he is in the lead. You can see he's running wide there to avoid Timon Subic and Tom Lane, who are not giving each other a second to breathe. But we're getting reports. I'm getting a couple of reports. Norm Graff in the Hypercar AMs, and Paul, we'll see if I can get you to cut a camera over to Norm Graff here. I'm getting a report that he has medium tires on.
That's what it's showing, but he's still sitting in the box, so he's clearly refueling, but Yeah, that seems like a very brave move to go to the mediums this early in the track conditions. Or it might be an error on our timing sheet that is also something that could be happening. But still sitting right here in the pits, and away he goes. We'll see if we get a connection there. And we're still showing as mediums. I don't think that's got to be an error, man. That's just too brave for these conditions.
Now, we have seen things happen before where we had a driver accidentally put on split axle tires and put dry tires on the rear and wet tires on the front. I do remember that happening earlier in the season. I have asked our wonderful Mr. Reese, our wonderful unnamed pit reporter, to try to confirm if there are mediums on this car as we are reporting. It doesn't visually look like it, though, but that doesn't necessarily mean things are correct. This could just be a case of R-Factor 2 doing just R-Factor 2 things. But no, I do see wet labels on there. So I think Norm Graff is on wet tires. That is... scared me for a second there, Norm. In the Cadillac, really scared me for a second. As a new best time by Locke of a 146.3. Times are coming down, but when does the next batch of rain get here? That is our $1 million question. And to tell you what, $1 million question, can we answer it, Michael? I cannot.
Yeah, I'm looking at the radar right now, and it shows that currently it is lightly raining, but actually it looks like we might have a patch coming through. So let me see if I can reload my radar real quick and get a better view of the current weather. Yeah, we might actually be running into a patch of dryness.
So here's where a good question comes in for me. This is where I want to know, did you watch Le Mans? Did you watch the 24 Hours of Le Mans?
I was able to catch bits and pieces of it, just like today with the 24 Hours of Spa.
Okay, so during the 24 Hours of Le Mans, we kept having these weird moments as we see Ernest Bonato here trying to get around. That is Stephen Miller that is right there in the mix. We had moments in Le Mans where it would rain, and then it would dry up, and then it would rain, and it would dry up, and of course it was off and on rain the entire time, but you'd get just enough time where people gambled on dry tires and then went back to the wets when the rain came back. So nobody ever really consistently knew what tire to run. Based on the radar, based on the sort of track conditions I'm seeing reported and watching here, do we think that could become an issue as we see Barker has gained 2 seconds through the pits there, even though it does still say he's in the pits. He's actually not. He's only a couple of seconds back off Dan Kirby.
The last time I saw that battle was 4 seconds. So yeah, he gained 2 seconds in the pits. It's now showing that he's 3 seconds behind. So that was definitely a very quick pit stop for Cameron Barker there to get back on Daniel Kirby.
Dan Kirby, 28 seconds in the pit, with Barker 26 seconds in the pit. So very clearly a slower pit stop, but on a 60-lap race, those 2 seconds can make the difference. And honestly, I'm going to tell you, if Barker wins and Kirby doesn't, the question will be, did that 2 seconds play into it? And we'll see how this race goes as it continues. We've still got yellow flags popping up and down everywhere. This is the battle for Pope and Chen. This is the battle for Am. Overall, we'll see how Jerry Chen does against Scar Pope. It's the Isoda versus the Porsche 963 here. And we'll see where this lands in, as they have the GT3 leader of Benica right there in front. So we'll watch this battle and how it develops, because Jerry Chen's been pretty quick and is starting to close time down, especially with Scar Pope catching up to a slower GT3 in these tricky conditions.
Yeah, it looks like Scar Pope is going to be able to get around the Acura NSX. The Acura. And that's going to actually put a little bit of distance between him and Jerry Chen. So he came up on that NSX at the perfect position. We'll see if Jerry Chen is able to... Yep, he's going to be able to make quick work of that down the main pit straight here. We come on to lap 20, come down into turn 1. these two cars look like they're handling that just fine as we see another yellow flag in Sector 3. I've been noticing we've been seeing quite a few yellows, but a lot of them are in Sector 3. I'm not sure if maybe that's just a little bit more of a treacherous part with the conditions, or I'm not sure what's going on in Sector 3, but I seem to see quite a few yellows popping up right there in that final sector.
I'm going to be honest with you. It is, I think if I had to guess why we see so many in Sector 3, it's just people running wide right here in Turn 10, where we pick up with Dan Kirby going around here, who is trying to hold off Cameron Barker, who is still closing the gap. Gap now 2 seconds, and is continuing to come down. So Dan Kirby has lost a little pace here after the pit stop cycles, and I'm not sure why, or if Cameron Barker's just picked up the pace. I've been watching lap times here over the past few laps, and I mean, they are very competitive here. So we get a replay coming in, and we'll see. This is going to be... This is Bussink. No! Big snap from the rear end there. And of course...
Keep it out of the wall.
That 9x8 does not have a rear wing. It relies on the cars pulling itself down. It doesn't have a rear wing for downforce. It you get it upset there on the curb like you do on the entry of the bus stop. The car can just send its way around. It doesn't matter what traction control you have. It doesn't matter what you're doing, what tires you're on. The car's going to say, you know what? I don't need traction. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I've always thought it was very interesting. Oh, wow, yeah. Absolutely losing the rear end. But I always found it interesting that they didn't put a rear ring on there, as we see he is able to kind of bring it back together after he taps the inside wall, so there's definitely going to be a little bit of damage on the front end of that Peugeot.
Yeah, Peugeot.
Peugeot.
Listen, you put two Americans in the booth and you try to get them to commentate on wet cars, you're going to have a couple of weird pronunciations here and there, okay, Paul? Listen, it is okay. Paul is in our ear and he does not like the way Americans pronounce that car brand. And I will not say the car brand again unless I have to. I'm just going to say 9x8 for a while. But we get... This is Craig Pullen coming up on your screen. And what has Craig Pullen been up to? Well, this is down... No!
What happened there? He just didn't even attempt to make the corner and went straight into the wall. That was a brutal hit.
No texting and driving, kids. No texting and driving. That is all I can say. I don't know if that's actually what he was doing, but just with no turn, no brake, I can only assume that it was some sort of distraction or possible just hardware issue that caused that. Another replay coming in. There's been lots of things going on. You mentioned lots of red flags. This is Timon Suvic with a good save going into the outer loop. Well, I spoke too soon. No, I'll give him credit. Good save in the outer loop there. Almost having a moment. Doesn't. Holds on to it. And very, very good run. John Ulian, Mr. Reese, and Stacy Scott's game there in the YouTube chat have been talking about the different strategies. And John Ulian has pointed out they were planning 15 lap stints in the dry. Daniel and Cameron doing 18 in the wet. So these two teammates here, Dan Kirby, Cameron Barker, running through a little bit longer. Not much longer than was planned in the dry, though, which is interesting. So they only ran a quarter distance. And they were planning on pitting every 15 laps. So I'm curious to see how that lands through. And John Ulian has said you cannot be on dry compounds right now while there is any sort of spray going on.
No, you definitely cannot be driving on those dry compounds. So it must have definitely been a mistake on our timing sheets for that medium tire that we saw earlier. But yeah, we have updated it, and it is definitely showing as a Rheem tire now. But Norm Graff is also showing as a DNF. I believe that was the runner that we had on the medium tire. So I think that there's just a lot of confusion going on with the timing sheets right now. I do want to point out, I'm not exactly sure what is going on, but Cameron Barker just absolutely taking chunk of time. Absolutely every single lap. And there's a spinner on the main straight there coming out of turn 11. Who was that? Looks like there might be an incident.
I don't know
tried to turn himself back around.
I don't know what hypercar that was, but that scared me. That scared me a lot.
We're gonna go ahead and see if we can take a look at it. Craig Pullen was involved in that spin there at the back end of the lap coming out of turn 11. I'm not sure if anybody else saw that though, but it looked like when he was trying to rejoin, it got real close to a GT3 car, and we're going to get a look at this spin here. And he just loses the rear end and keeps it out of the pit lane, kind of jumps on the brakes, and just give it a moment here, because I thought I saw it get very close there, and maybe, yeah, he definitely got in the way of that advantage. That was a very, very, very tricky rejoin there.
Head on a swivel for whoever that Aston Martin was. You, sir, deserve a cookie at least. That was impressive, and I will overnight Amazon you a fresh pair of underwear because I would need one after that. That was rough. And Norm Graff, it's showing on the rain tire, but he is DNF'd, so Craig Pullen now DNF'd as well. So let's do a quick recap here. Lap 23 of 61, we have lost James Bowders, Daniel Scott, Benjamin Porteous Heath, Norm Graff, and Craig Pullen. So interestingly enough, only one GT3 car. Everyone else is a hypercar that we've lost so far. But I will say the hypercars are the most challenging probably in these conditions to drive. So it doesn't shock me that that is the percentage, 4-1 on the cars we've lost. Did you see Dan
I
Kirby?
want to jump in here. Jamie Zalecki is showing as on hards right now.
There's no way.
Yep. Ooh, Craig Pullen. I'm not sure what happened there, but that was a big hit, and that was the precursor to the turn 11 spin. So maybe he had some extensive damage that caused that. But yeah, Jamie Zalecki in the Acura NSX showing on hard tires. I don't understand that call. It just seems way too dangerous right now for hard tires, for slicks in any sort of form.
Well, and what's interesting, too, is if you look at our weather report, we're still reporting 15% rain in. So there's still rain coming in, but the track is drying out, even with that light sprinkle through. So kind of watching that, it's interesting to think anyone wants to gamble with a dry weather tire. And looking at lap times, there's no way Jamie Zalecki should be on a hard tire. If that is truly accurate, running a 255 last lap to Ross Smith's 248, there's no way that is accurate.
Yeah, that can't be right. That cannot be right.
And
a 254 to a 249, but are those those have to be pit laps?
Yeah, those are out laps. But then you look at Sector 1 on the next lap. I mean, he's 7 seconds slower than Ross Smith. So, no, he's on the bottom right of your screen. That is correct.
If you look at Willem Schlichting, he had an outlap as well. All right. If you look at Willem Schlichting, I believe his last lap was an outlap as well. He had a 241. If you take that down to Jamie Zalecki, I apologize, Jamie Zalecki, 254.3. That's a huge difference there between the two GT3 cars. So, I mean, he might be, as we see an incident here, Ben Kesby and Tom Lane. Ben Kesby going way wide there.
Woo. Those two have been battling a while, and it looks like, unfortunately, now Ben Kesby there has made the run with the Crown Dental Group Ferrari running through. Michael Lock there now ahead. He lost significant time there. That was scary. But yeah, no, Jamie Zalecki, that's a gamble, and it's not the gamble I would make. So we'll see. And of course, visually, we were able to confirm that too, that he is indeed on a hard tire as it goes. But yeah, no, I really don't know, Michael, why would you go for a dry tire right now? Like, what is this, just a gamble that you think the track's going to dry out soon enough that you can make that time back?
I mean, I would assume so, but I mean, are we expecting them to come in any more times? I know we know this race is going to be a little bit longer than we had originally expected, as we see another replay of the Kesby incident here.
He went for a late dive there to the inside, just had no grip. There is a bit of camber on the boot there, but he just brought that way too quick, and he just lucky to keep out of Tom Lane there, honestly. But take a look here, Kirby and Cameron Baker. Cameron Baker's pace has backed off a slight amount. Last time I believe we saw it was about a second, maybe a 1.2. But right now, about
1 6/10 off. So let's take a look here. Let me see what Kirby's last lap is. Kirby's last lap was a 150, and Cameron Barker's last lap was a 149. So they just came through there. That might have been traffic related. So maybe Daniel Kirby was able to move through some traffic a little bit easier than Cameron was. I'm going to jump here to GT3 racing. JT Tammy and David Junt. This is the battle for second and third place for your overall GT3 leaders, your pros. Aston Martin versus Acura NSX.
It's no surprise to me to see Aston Martin and Acura battling here. You've got David Junt, JT Tammy, again, the battle for P2 overall in GT3, and we see this is the run down into the bus stop, and this is something they've done 26 times now. So if you're David Junt, you got one of two options here. Run it single file through, or try to send it, and I'm going to be frank, in the wet conditions, trying to go side-by-side through the bus stop is not the correct decision. But then again, when do race car drivers ever listen to me? They don't. Woo. A little bit of a slide there. They're able to keep it on track. They keep things going, and we just continue on yet again. It will stay like this and stay like this until it doesn't, and the big key will be who is more consistent. I think they're evenly matched on pace. I think the key is going to be who can just get the edge on the other driver, and I do think it looks like David Junt having a bit better of a run than JT Tammy as we stand here there, and you see they're side by side here going down, and it does look like hard brakes up the inside, and he is going to make that land. Can we get a crossover? It does not look like it, so it is going to be JT Tammy behind David Junt, but he'll go back for the inside. Still side by side battle for P2 and the GT3s as they go around, but it is David Junt who can finally square that in. That NSX just a little bit steadier as you see the Aston Martin sliding a little bit there for JT Tammy.
Yeah, and that was a very, very, very good run by both of these cars. Turn 9 has a lot of off camber. You come uphill, and then all of a sudden it's a very tight left-hander, and it's slightly off camber. So that is not the easiest place to put a car, especially when you're on the outside with the car on the inside. You got to be very careful. So kudos to both of those cars for being able to race cleanly, especially with a hypercar coming up right behind them.
Yeah, and the big thing too is the hypercar behind is you see that big battle going, and you want to guess. You kind of want to guess. You know, do I get involved in this battle and get in their way, or do I just kind of go through and stay out of the way? And very, very good timing, honestly, from the hypercar to catch up here as we see everyone continuing through and around, and that is George Angelides that we have there on your screen with John Mayer just behind there in the Mistral Porsche 963. As they go, and then here's the thing too, if you're Mayer, you know you have the GT3 up ahead. Do you use the GT3 for a pick? If you are George Angelides, do you use the GT3 for defense? What's your plan? And it looks like just down the main straight they're going to go. Mayer there wanting to try to look past George Angelides and try to make a pass into turn 1. Can't make it stick at the moment, and you can see that the GT3 actually a bit deeper on the brakes into turn 1 than the hypercars are.
Yeah, those hypercars are going to be a little bit more fragile when it comes to braking in these wet conditions. Obviously, they have a lot more downforce than the GT3 cars, but the GT3 cars are just that much more confident under braking in these kind of conditions, that's for sure. So we see these cars coming into the bus stop. Looks like Angelides is going to be able to hold on to that position for now. It worked out in his favor coming out of turn 1 that he was able to put a little bit of distance on John Mayer, but Mayer keeping that gap down as we jump back up to our overall leaders, Daniel Kirby and Cameron Baker. That gap is down to about a second now, so it keeps going up and down, but Cameron Barker is not letting Daniel Kirby out of his sights. This is going to be a very, very, very close battle here for the rest of this race as we come about just shy of halfway.
Yeah, we're getting close to that halfway point, and I'm trying to work out, strategies and decisions for pit stops and what everyone might be doing, because I don't think it's going to be tire limited at all. I think really it's just fuel runs at this point. That's the good thing with the wet weather tires is we have Dan Kirby here just trying to comfortably stay in the lead if it's possible. And, well, I think comfortable is a relative term because Cameron Barker isn't that far off, but they've got 27 seconds on Dan Herlock. Absolutely crazy. Ben Kesby is DNF, so we add another hypercar to our loss across 60 laps of the Glen. And of course, remember, we are only on lap number 28 as we approach half distance. So in 28 laps, we lost 5 hypercars and 1 GT3. And honestly, I think James Bowders didn't even take the start. So I don't know if I'm going to count that. Well, he might have taken the start, but I'm also showing that he started on rain and hard tire split axles. So we'll see what happened here to Ben Kesby, and draft, and snap back around, and into the garage he went.
Yeah, it looks like he just came up on those 2 cars, caught a little bit too much of the draft, lost downforce on the nose, and that was it. That car went around, caught the tail end into the wall, and he had his day. We've already seen Ben have a couple incidents, so this was probably just a little bit of frustration and just, gotta just take a breath and just, call it a day. But we did see him have an incident. We're gonna get a replay here, and we're gonna see Ben have another incident here at the bus stop, just losing the rear end. He doesn't collect the wall, but this was right before we saw the moment that caused him to go ahead and DNF. We did see an incident with Ben just a little while ago as well, coming into the boot where he got wide and went into the wall. So he probably already had quite a bit of damage sustained from that incident. So unfortunate for Ben, but we're going to keep a look at this Daniel Kirby Cameron Barker battle, as Barker is really just chopping away at that lead.
Yeah, and that's the big thing for Barker, is he's just got to stay consistent. I don't think he needs to do anything drastic. I think he just needs to stay there, really, and let Dan Kirby know he's there. And, of course, remember, they're teammates, so nothing too crazy. Look at the bottom right there as Mayer and George. And the GT3 in the mix as well, and I believe that is Benica that is in the mix there. But deep on the brakes they go. Where they come out, nobody knows.
John Mayer was able to make that move, so we'll have to get a replay of that if we can. But Angelitas now in 3rd place. Daniel Kirby just holding on there. I think, like you said, they're teammates, so they got to race each other very cleanly, both in the CMS Pro Porsche 963, but it's definitely going to be a tough one. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you guys saw the sprint race with the battle between Lando and Oscar Piastri earlier, but yeah, teammates, they're gonna want to try to race each other fair, but you gotta be thinking about your own race at some point. So as we see John Mayer get by, that was a very, very, very deep run there by excuse me, John Mayer. That was a very deep run by George Angelitas there, so he lost a little bit. And it looks like traffic is rolling in Daniel Kirby's direction as Cameron Barker getting held up by a couple GT3 cars. So that is not what Cameron Barker wants to see, as that gap has gone up to 2.5 seconds.
Dan Herlock has picked up some sort of a penalty here. Sorry to cut you off, Michael. But Dan Herlock in 3rd place, 30 seconds back from the leaders here with a penalty for what we believe to be track limits. We'll work on confirming that, but some sort of a penalty being handed out. It was immediately following this incident, so we'll see here. Track limits, I'm going to presume. You see he's getting around the GT. Oh!
He got a little tap there.
Ooh. Okay.
It looks like the rear end caught a little bit of the front end of that Mustang, so not really much he could do in that situation.
Tell you what, Amazon next day shipping for some fresh underwear is going to be very busy for these drivers. Yeah, Amazon Prime, ladies and gentlemen, not sponsored here. Whew. Man, going through, and I think that Mustang, if I had to guess who that was, looking at the cars, I believe that was Gilles Lalonde, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that though. And is Jamie Selecki still out on hard tires? Am I still seeing that correct? Did we determine if that was correct or not? Because Jamie Selecki is starting to run very similar lap times to the cars around him that are still on wet tires.
Yeah, it's still showing as hards for me. So yeah, 157.68 Well, no, his last lap was a 2:01, so he's still about 3 seconds off our leaders here. Jamie Junt running a 157 flat, so about 4 seconds off our leaders there. But yeah, he's still showing his hard on my timing screen, which I believe is the same one that you're going to be looking at. But yeah, definitely interesting there. But I want to jump back over here. Daniel Kirby. Apparently, I'm getting word that there was no contact with the Mustang in that incident there. So no contact for the GT3 and the Hypercar. So it just kind of looked like it from my perspective. But I was incorrect. I apologize there. Daniel Kirby, as we get a replay here, we're going to see the Hypercar coming out from your right there, and it's very close, but you're correct. We're correct. There is no contact with that Mustang. So
Man.
It looked like it was from 1/8 camera angle, but that clearly shows no contact.
Little bit of a update here from our fun friend John Ulian, the teammate, of course, to Cameron Barker and Dan Kirby, as Dan Kirby has now dove into the pits yet again. We're half race distance here. John Ulian has reported no team orders. Cameron is free to race Daniel. Only unspoken rule is respect racing space, do not block. So CMS Pro, no team orders. They are going to hold things on.
I can't imagine there would be team orders there. I apologize if it sounded like that's what I was saying. These guys are both very, very, very top-notch drivers. We get another replay here momentarily. George Angelidis getting a little bit of an incident here, and we're going to see... Oh, he got the inside of that car. I'm not sure who it was.
George Angelidis just
coming down into the chute there and just had way, way, way too much heat coming in.
George, what did you do, mate? Why would you do that? And of course, Cameron Barker has now taken the race lead as Dan Kirby went into the pits, and now Herlock's in as well. So second round of pit stops and Hypercar is starting to come around here, Michael, and we're starting to see everybody cycle through. So more pit stops than we were expecting, but it's leading to some interesting moments. We'll see how things mix up.
Yeah, this has definitely been very interesting to see the pit strategies work out. Not exactly how we thought at all, but obviously the weather is being very, very, very finicky here. It has stopped raining, but I'm not sure that that's going to be the case for the rest of the race. As we see Cameron Barker trying to make his way through some traffic. He's got quite the gap on Bradley Sellers, number 2, but we know we're waiting on Daniel Kirby to come around. So when Cameron Barker comes through into his time to pit, and we see here, we are confirming that Daniel Herlock is still on wets. So the Hypercars are still all on wet tires. It's still showing as Jamie Zalecki, the only car on hard tires so far, but it does look like the track might be drying. That racing line looks like it's quite dry. I'm not seeing too much spray coming off the back of Cameron Barker right there, until he gets into the little bit off the line there into the wet.
Yeah, it seems like the cars are holding on pretty well as we get another replay coming up here. There's been so many moments that have gone on. Big shout out to Paul there in the production booth holding things together. This is Good Life, who is not having a good life there, trying to go up the hill through the heel, and he just absolutely slides through. He catches it on the grass, doesn't hit the wall, but Good Life is not having a good time here in the rain, respectively. Cameron Barker is still holding on and doing well. George Angelidis with a fastest lap. Bradley Sellers into the pits. Plenty of things happening. Oohs and ahs everywhere you want to look as we keep this race moving. Lap 33 now in the books here. Cameron Barker, the question will be, can he pull enough of a gap on Dan Kirby to try to, jump him? Can he undercut?
I mean, he definitely had the pace just on the track, and they just kept getting involved here as we take a look at a couple different battles on track here. Eduardo, now we're on with George Angelidis and John Whited. And, okay, we're back here on our overall number 1 here. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that, bud. Cameron Barker and Daniel Kirby. Cameron Barker looks like he's really struggling in that turn there on the braking. So I'm not sure how much longer he's going to stay out as we see another yellow coming through in Sector 1. See if we can get an update on what's going on with that. But Daniel Kirby is keeping that gap. Oh, there is a Hypercar off on turn 1 there.
Who was that? I couldn't tell. That was a weird place. Turn 1 has been horrible for people today. Can we just agree to that, Michael? Turn 1 has been horrible.
Absolutely. Turn 1 has just been pretty much where all the drama has been. That in the obviously here at the bus stop, but we kind of knew that was going to be the case. So we get another replay here. We'll see what's going on. We see a hypercar getting quite loose, and off he goes into the wall and gets buried into that wall.
Ouch. Yeah,
definitely.
Bad day. Bad day all the way around. Who is that? That's the number 40. And I will go ahead and tell you who the number 40 is. The number 40 is Jason Whited. What? I'll have to confirm how you pronounce that last name. Whited. Yes. So that is what we're with. We still see... I mean, he's still going, so it doesn't look like it hurt him, really. It's a little bit of just a little side tap. That is the nice thing about being in a simulator, is that you can get away with things like that every once in a while.
Yeah, in real life, that definitely would have been a DNF, but Eric Monet and Scar Pope battling it out for second place. Scar Pope coming into second place. This is second place for your Hypercar AM class. Scar Pope, go ahead, make that look easy. He is just absolutely dusting Eric Monet right now.
Yeah, it looks
Definitely
very...
got the pace there.
He looks very comfortable, honestly. And now as they come up on GT3 traffic, we'll see if that changes the game any. It doesn't look like it will. So we get another replay here, and we'll see what sort of on turn 1 Dan Herlock action. Oh. Okay, Herlock. Just bye-bye. Adios.
Oh, that was a big hit. Who was that?
Ooh.
Oh, that was Whited. Jason Whited just had no place to go there.
Who? Actually, yeah, that might have been Yuki Takanashi.
Oh, yeah, Yuki has fallen down the order completely. Last lap was a 2:16. Yuki's also showing on medium tires as well.
And so is Luke Goodlife.
Okay, so we're getting confirmation that was Yuki Takanashi's, apologies there. He is on mediums and he was involved in that. So he had no place to go, ran wide, and there was a hypercar sitting right in front of him. It's interesting to see more people going onto dry compound tires, and I will say we're seeing less and less and less spray as the race goes on. So we are maybe, possibly, potentially hitting a point of crossover into mixed conditions, but looking at lap times, I'm hesitant to say so. But then again, Zalecki, as we see a Chin here with a moment over the curbs going around the bus stop, and you see a little bit of a slide there with the fake boost car, and I wonder if you know how they live in Tokyo. Well, in Watkins Glen, they do not like to slide. Anyways, looking at lap times, Jamie Zalecki with a 158, and I'm looking at Josh LePetri, the car ahead, with a 158 on wet tires, and Yuki Takanashi actually setting faster laps the last lap than anyone on rain tires. Tom Lane is now showing on medium tires as well, running 150s up in P5 in hypercars. So we'll see where Tom Lane finds himself here as the race goes on, and if he is running competitive times. I mean, I think it might just be the crossover point. While our top 5 are still on wet tires, I do see a few people taking the gamble onto mediums, but the issue is going to be, if you're on those mediums, if you run wide, you're going to end up in the wall just like that. You have to be on the racing line, and I think that's the big thing, is it's not just about is the racing line dry, is the rest of the track dry, because if you have to get around a GT3, you're trying to make a pass for position, you're pretty well stuck if the track doesn't dry out enough.
So Cameron Barker has been into the pits and he still has the lead, so he was able to really stretch his legs there. He's got about a 6-second lead on Daniel Kirby, so not only did the undercut work, it just absolutely dominated there. And also, I'm being told here that his pit stop was 9 seconds quicker. Daniel Kirby having 9 seconds longer in the pits. But I do want to point out that last lap, Daniel Kirby put in a 1:45.3. So That is just absolutely stunning. Cameron Barker possibly didn't take new tires where Daniel Kirby did, but a 1:45.3, that's by far the fastest lap that we've had so far. I think the closest we had to that is 46s. Yeah, 1:46.9. I'm sorry, no, a 1:46.7 for Daniel Herlock. No, I'm sorry, I apologize. We've had a couple 1:45s.
Yeah, that's
So Ernest Bernaldo has a 1:45.2. So as I'm going down through the list here, I am seeing a couple, but 1:45.3 compared to Cameron Barker's outlap of a 2:25, but 9-second different there. That's insane. But it looks like Daniel Kirby is cutting into that lead so far, so he's got that gap down from 5 to 4 seconds now. We take a look. Timon Suvak going into the pits. Or is that I apologize, that's Michael Locke in the pits there.
Michael Locke in, and I'm curious to see what tires Michael Locke going on to dry compound tires. I do think that someone just unlapped themselves on Barker. I'm trying to tell who that is. I believe that was is that George who managed to do that? Let's see.
It's got to be that Cameron didn't take 4 tires. That doesn't make any sense. He's just losing a lot of pace now. So we're seeing way more cars go onto the dry tires, and Cameron Barker, our race leader, who was absolutely dominating there and just taking huge chunks out of Daniel Kirby. Daniel Kirby is just absolutely flipping the script on him and just catching him. That gap is down to 2.2 seconds now. So we're going to have a battle for the lead here momentarily.
So here's where things get interesting. So Barker 1:47 last lap, Dan Kirby 1:46.6 last lap, and really Cameron Barker with a 1:48. He was a 1:47.9, et cetera, et cetera. Traffic's coming in. Here's where things get interesting. Who has gambled the tire situation right? Look down to P8. Tom Lane is on mediums. You look further back, Eric Monet, Yuki Takanashi, Michael Locke, all on mediums. You go
Yuki
back even
Takanashi
further.
just put in a 1:40.9.
Yeah, so I think we are way off on the tire situation depending on traffic. If Yuki Takanashi can put in that time, if he's got free track space, he ran 3 seconds faster than the leaders in Sector 1 alone. I mean, wow. Yeah, and Tom Lane with a 1:41.8 on the last lap, and he's currently setting times to go a second faster. I think the leaders on the rain tires have gambled incorrectly. Possibly. But the question is the rain coming back? What is the radar looking like?
I just looked at the radar just a moment ago, and it looks like it is going to be clearing up. I don't think we're going to have any more rain until about 4:30 Eastern. So, I mean, maybe at the very end of this race, but I think those hard tire gamblers might be right in this situation. We're not going to be seeing any rain anytime soon.
So everyone in the front is going to have to pit again and do a tire change and go through. But then you also have the situation like Jason here with Eric, and if you are trying to battle and you've got to go off the racing line, you're on dry tires, that's a dangerous situation to be in. But yet again, Tom Lane with a 1:41.8, while Troy Uyen ahead is a 1:48.5. And as we see Jason Whiting run wide there to Eric Monet, I still think possibly the right decision, even though it looks like the reported rain is starting to get a little heavier. It's a gamble. This is where, this is where really you as a driver, you just have to know what you're doing, because we ride on board here with Dan Kirby. You can see the wiper is back going. There's little sprinkles, but is it enough to make the track wet enough to make dry tires slower? I think that's going to be the question as we watch this race go on. This is genuinely a crapshoot in strategy. This is where you just guess, and really your ability and your team's ability is what's going to settle this in on if you did this right or wrong. It is very hard to know unless you are the driver on track and you are really the one making the decision. We'll see both of the CMS Pro Porsches decide to power slide.
Yeah, Daniel Kirby really holding on there to the rear end of that car, but absolutely has the pace to get by his teammate here, Cameron Barker. this battle is just going to continue to brew and brew and brew. But apparently we are seeing 15% rain, so I was just looking at the radar, and I swear I saw that it was clearing up. So apparently the rain doesn't know what it wants to do. So these drivers, like you said, absolute crapshoot, and it's all just a gamble. So you see Barker is getting passed by Kirby. It looks like he kind of just moved out of the way. Yeah, it looked like he just kind of just let him pass. So maybe Cameron Barker knows a little something about the fact that he is losing some time here and just didn't want to, hold up his teammate too much. So, I mean, this has definitely been a great battle, but that was a little bit of a letdown. He didn't even defend that.
Here's something for you looking at the last lap. Yuki Takanashi was 7 seconds slower than his 140. He ran a 147. This is George Angelitas bus stop inside. Just completely missed the brakes. Just completely missed it. He sent it around the GT3 through the inside. That's a naughty move, George. That's a naughty move.
That was one of the Trash Panda Corvettes, the Bice brothers, able to back out there because George really missed his breaking point there. So we'll take a look here. Daniel Kirby. Oh, we're getting another replay. This is busing. Looks like coming into the outer loop. No, I apologize.
Hard on the brakes there. I mean, just completely missed it, though. Ran very wide. We've seen a lot of that today. We're lap 40 of 61, and I tell you what, the amount of drivers that I've seen run wide on corners is crazy. It's one of my least favorite things about Watkins Glen, honestly, is drivers tend to have issues with turn 1, turn 10, with track limits going through. I will say, gaps in the GT3. We had a strong GT3 battle for about the first 20 laps, but now you can see that things have really opened up, settled down, and not too many crazy things. Kirby and Barker here, separated by 2 seconds, but then you go back to Herlock. Herlock 52 seconds back from them. Timon Subic in the pits. I believe Timon Subic. Yeah, let's see. Tire strategy. He was on wets, and Timon Subic, I believe, is going to stay on wets, which doesn't surprise me, especially if the rain is picking up a little bit. We'll see how things go. I'm trying to see if any of our dry tire runners are going to just bite the bullet and pit, because you got to think there's a point where you're losing more time being on the wrong tire than you're actually saving by not pitting. I don't see any of them have hit yet, but
Tom Lane's last lap there was a 146. Our leaders last lap, Daniel Kirby and Cameron Barker, were both in the 148, 149 range. So technically speaking, the soft tires are still a little bit faster, but not by much. But that lap difference between Yuki Takanashi, a 140.9 to a 145.2 is last lap. So yeah, those dry tires are definitely still a second or two faster, but they are probably dealing with a lot more treacherousness, as we see one of the hypercars getting loose there and sitting on the end of turn 1 as we get a replay here to see what happened.
See, and this is going to be around. Yeah, it's raining much heavier now, especially with this onboard, you can tell. And you got to just sit still for a second, let the traffic come through before you can get going again and slide that car around.
Nice little pirouette.
Yeah, I like that. That was a nice little clutch dump, spinning around in the grass, and now we get back going. Nothing too bad, but it is raining much heavier than it was. Even though there is still a dry line, with it, there's enough cars circulating on track that really we're still keeping a bit of a dry line going. Russ Smith with an off track. Zalecki's into the pits. There's a lot of stuff going on, but the one thing... Oh, let's see. See if we can get a replay of what happened to Ross, because I think Ross's incident also involved a hypercar. Dan Kirby here with Cameron Barker, still 4.5 seconds behind, and you can see Dan Kirby is kind of hunting a little bit for the water. Seems like he's trying to just find wet patches, especially I noticed that down the main straight last lap, but times are coming back down. We are slowing down. Here we go. Let's see what has happened here with this Acura. I think this is Good Life. We'll see here. that is who he sees as he goes through. Somebody had ran wide, and it was Good Life. Again, Good Life not having a good night here in Watkins Glen, and goes around, and, well, nothing too wild as we keep things going here. Dan Kirby, again, 3.5 seconds on Barker. Consistent. Thank you for not running too far off the track, but look at the gaggle of cars that Dan Kirby's coming up on.
Yeah, he's still having a real tough time with that turn 1 exit. He's still losing a lot of downforce on the rear end of that car, but he's coming through the S's with a bunch of GT3 traffic, able to get past that NSX pretty easily, and we'll see how he's able to work through the next part, this bus stop here with the Porsche, and I believe that is an Aston Martin right in front of him. Yes, that is an Aston Martin. So these two GT3 cars are battling it out. So Daniel Kirby's got to be very careful here. Coming into the chute, he's able to take the inside on the Porsche, but not able to make a move on the Aston. The Aston stays right on that line. He has to back out a little bit. Coming into the boot, we'll see if he's able to make the pass here. He's going to have to do it on the outside if he does. And it looks like a little bit of spray coming off there. That Aston Martin's having a little bit of a tough time keeping the rear end under control itself, but there you go. Daniel Kirby is able to make that move and get it done.
Yeah, Dan Kirby doing a very good job getting that move around and out of the way as we go through here. And now we check back in with Brian Hall, who's holding off Tom Lane. Tom Lane has been a very, very feisty driver the whole way, but you can see that they are 83 seconds back on the race leaders. So they continue to go here. Brian Hall, Tom Lane keep battling it out. Lap 42 on the books now as we continue around, and you can see that you got to keep trying as best you can, and Tom Lane has been very consistent all the way through as we go. He's still just right there in the mix through the bus stop with Brian Hall. They keep this battle going, and I will tell you right now, I'm kind of looking we had the drivers fill out some different things, some different answers and questions. I'd like to point out Ross Smith. We asked him about his thoughts of Le Mans. He said PTSD from the 296, and I think that's all I need to really point out for him as we go through and we continue out. Scar Pope's goal for today was just to make the end. Dan Kirby's goal was just to be competitive and have fun. And I would say if you're Dan Kirby, you're currently leading, so you're doing a pretty good job of your goal, buddy. You can't lie there. Tom Lane is still running and is still battling. Dan Herlock's goal was to be in a mix for the podium. And, well, Dan Herlock currently sitting P3 on the Hypercar podium, so he's doing a good job on that as well.
Yeah, he's got a 7-second gap back to Bradley Sellers, so he's got a little bit of a cushion there as we get a little picture-in-picture. It looks like, oh, yeah, those Hypercars are able to get through nice and safely here. But, yeah, this is definitely, I think there's a little bit more spray coming off the back end of these cars, so that rain definitely picked up quite a bit. Interesting to see our slick runners right now. Let's see, Tom Lane is one of them. So Tom Lane and Brian Hall, here's a great battle here. Not only are they battling for 5th position, but they're also battling between rain tires and slick tires. So this is quite interesting to see.
Yeah, you can see the rooster tails starting, honestly, off the back of Tom Lane again. So the rain, as it's picked up, and it does seem like it's picking up a little bit more now, visually at least, it's picking up a bit more now. But Tom Lane is very dangerous there on the medium tire. He's just holding on. He's very consistent with lap times, but of course Brian Hall on the wet tires is able to kind of search a little bit more. So it seems like he's got a little bit more consistency going. I'm trying to see what's happening. Tom Lane, while he is holding on, it is going to be very, very hard for him to pass if he has to go offline. He's really going to have to just force Brian Hall offline more than it is he will be able to make a dive up the inside or the outside. He has to stay on that racing line because any sort of deviation with the track at the stage it's at right now could be a very, very bad time for Tom Lane, and I don't think I need to explain it.
He's able to go to the inside on that Aston Martin right there, but still very treacherous if you get anywhere off the racing line on these soft compound tire, the medium compound tires that he's running. So it's definitely, I would definitely say advantage slightly to Brian Hall being able to defend, as we see a
little bit of a slip there, but Brian Hall probably going to be able to defend a little bit more because he's got the ability to just force Tom Lane to go off track or go offline into the wets. So if this battle comes to a head here, I think definitely, in my opinion, advantage to Brian Hall.
I would agree with that.
So we're getting word here that Schlichting has had a disconnect, so that's going to be another DNF.
Surprisingly, Schlichting, that is only our second GT3 DNF, as Mike Bice has picked up a penalty coming out of the pit, so he's still running. The key, remember, one of our keys of the race was to just keep swimming, just keep going, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, and frankly, that's what all of our cars are doing here, is they just keep swimming. And who's the hypercar backwards there? Who was that down at the bottom of the chute? That was, they're still sitting there too, whoever that is. So very, very bad day for someone at the chute. The chute shooting them off wide. That is going to be number Hypercar AMP11. I'll see if we can figure out who that is here in just a moment.
Is that Yuki? Yuki Takanashi?
I think that is possibly Yuki as we go. Very unfortunate for him. Yeah, that's a weird moment there for Yuki Takanashi, if that is indeed him like we think it is. We'll try to double check it here in a moment as we keep this race moving and grooving. John Uyen pointing out offline is not accumulating rain fast enough, but it's making the dry line trickier by the minute. So we see the Rooster Tails coming back up here, Michael, and things keep going. And I say that I wouldn't be surprised if drivers go back on wet tires. And we're getting confirmation it wasn't Yuki, it was Timon Suvic who was sitting backwards there on the track. So Timon Suvic with a big moment there. George Angelidis is into the pits again. Let's get a replay here of what happened to Mr. Timon Suvic. Let's see as he comes around down the chute, and goodbye.
Just lost the rear end there. Not really anything else going on. Just maybe a little bit too excited on the throttle, trying to get around that Mustang, the GT3 traffic, and just lost the rear end. As we see this battle for 5th place is still just raging on. Brian Hall and Tom Lane coming down into the chute here. And it looks like we're going to just touch on our leader right now. Kirby has opened up a lap to, or quite a gap to his partner here, his teammate Barker. Cameron Barker now 8 seconds behind our leader, Daniel Kirby. And it looks like we have a DNF here from Timon Suvic. So after that incident that we just saw coming into the chute, he has decided to call it quits. So that is another hypercar out of the mix for us tonight. It's just interesting to see, out of all the DNFs that we have, that 90% of them are hypercars.
Yeah, I agree, and it's interesting, really. Tom Lane is still being very competitive with Brian Hall here, even as we continue to see the track get wetter and wetter and wetter as this race continues. Of course, we're lap 46 of 61. We're getting within just moments left to go in this race, and these two are still separated by just half a second coming down. And remember that Tom Lane is on medium compound tires. He is on dry compound tires, and the spray is coming up, but he's just right there in the mix with Brian Hall. Nice and consistent, and his lap times are showing too. He's separated by just a rate of knots on them, so they keep things through. Bradley Sellers is on an outlap at the moment. He went into the pits and went around. Yeah, it's interesting to me that Kirby is opening up such a gap on Barker. The gap now 9.8 seconds, almost 10 seconds as they go. You see Tom Lane getting a little bit trickier as this run goes. I would not be surprised to see him, if he has to make a final pit stop, throw on a brand new set of rain tires to the end.
Yeah, I would actually be curious to see which one of these tires is degrading a little bit faster, as we see Tom Lane has a huge run through the chute here. We've seen him get very close. Oh, Brian Hall getting very loose coming out of the chute. But this is just a tough battle, but I'd be really interested to see, is Tom Lane able to make these dry tires last to the end, or is he going to have to come in, like you said, throw on some wet tires? Because
it's just very interesting to me to see who is going to have, you know, the longevity on the tire wear. And we are getting word that we had another DNF, and I am looking to see it is Chen.
Jerry Chen. What has happened to Jerry Chen? It looks like some sort of a disconnect issue, because he was running fine and then just disappeared. So I don't know what happened there. We'll see if we can't get confirmation from possibly Mr. Reese, our unnamed pit reporter who likes to hang out in YouTube chat, to see if he can tell us exactly what's happened. And as we go through, look at this, Brian Hall, Tom Lane having to navigate the GT3 traffic. And remember, Tom Lane on the dry tires is gonna have to be very careful if he has to run offline to get around the GT3s. The GT3s, of course, don't need to just move to the side, hit the brakes and stop. They can hold their line. It is up to the car behind to pass. And I tell you what, they didn't make it easy on Tom Lane. Tom Lane through, though. Brian Hall not getting as much of a gap as he would have liked. We're lap 47 to 61, and Dan Kirby is into the pits here.
Dan Kirby is into the pits, and Daniel Hurlock has been in the pits and is just now coming out of the pits. So that has moved Brian Hall and Tom Lane up into 4th and 5th place. Cameron Barker takes over 1st place. Daniel Kirby is taking, I would assume, his final pit stop. So maybe this was all the plan for Cameron Barker. Maybe earlier when we saw him just kind of let Daniel go, he knew he was going to have the run towards the end of the race. So this is going to be very interesting. I would have to assume that Cameron Barker is planning on coming in at some point, but I mean, it's going to be very hard to tell now. Is Cameron Barker going to be able to make it to the end of the race? Because, I mean, that would explain why he just didn't even fight Daniel Kirby earlier.
That is a good question, and I don't know the answer to that right offhand. He might question mark. That would be a very, very good question that I'm gonna defer to YouTube.
In the dry, we knew that they were going to take at least 2 pit stops due to the fueling. So 20 to 25 minutes between. His pit stop was shorter, so I would have to assume that he didn't take fresh tires, so he's going to be on older rubber. But fuel saving wise, I mean, they're not using as much fuel in the wet as they would be in the dry, obviously, because they have to lift and coast a little bit more due to the conditions. So I mean, with the older rubber, but maybe fuel saving a little bit. We'll see here if he's staying. He's going to stay out on this lap. I think he's going to be able to go to the end. I mean, that's going to be asking a lot of those tires, but fuel conservation wise, I think he's going to be able to. But I mean, I could be wrong. I have no idea what kind of. But just going off of the 20 to 25 minutes in the dry, only having to stop twice, really. Well, no, because that wouldn't really add up either. So I think he is going to have to come in. I take it back. I think Cameron Barker does have one more pit stop left in him.
It's very, very touch and go probably to the end, because of course we're lap 49 of 60. So it'll be 11 laps through. Brian Hall there, Tom Lane, not too far separated. They keep things moving. Oh, man. Things are very, very close for them. Tom Lane, again, still on those medium tires, so he's still kind of in a scary moment as things go. And I'm trying to just keep my eyes on what happens here with Dan Kirby, because the gap is 34 seconds between Dan Kirby and Cameron Barker. So if Cameron Barker is staying out, he's going to have to hold on to it. Bradley Sellers is into the pits, so we'll see here. That's 2 of our hypercars on their 3rd pit stop. I don't know. I don't know what the strategy is at this point. I'm going to defer to John Illian to give me an idea. Daniel stopped earlier, hence the difference between the 2. Not possible. Cameron stop again. Okay, so we are expecting Cameron Barker to stop again. The question is just going to be, is he trying to pull some sort of overcut on Dan Kirby to make something stick? I don't know. His lap times his sector times, at least that I'm seeing, are still somewhat faster. So we'll see where that goes, as we have Wayne Galvin and Joe Wilkes there, the 2 teammates in the Mustangs, battling it out. This is P9 and P10 for your GT3 battles. We have one of the Ferrari hypercars swing its way by, and now you're going to get side-by-side Mustangs down the straight into the bus stop. Who comes out of this into the inner loop very, very well? Oh, a little bit of bump, and oh, that is going to be Joe Wilkes running way off, and now he's going to have to take the chicane through in the bus stop and just bump the barrier for fun. So Wayne Galvin and Joe Wilkes, teammates, making contact there in Mustangs, and, you know, there's a Mustang joke I can insert, but I won't.
Absolutely no love lost by those teammates. They're very, very, very tight battle. We're going to go ahead and get a very, very, very close look at what exactly happened here. Just coming up to that quarter panel and just a light tap there, but that is enough. That is more than enough to send that Mustang off into the chicane, and like you said, just treating that barrier like it doesn't even exist.
I mean, saved a little bit of time there by just giving the barrier a little bit of a love tap. And you could see the JP Broadcasting logo getting a little bit of love itself there. So, you know, just your quick reminder, regardless of where you're watching, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on the bells, do all of those fun things to support CMS Racing, Championship Motorsports, and the JP Broadcasting Network. If you're watching on one, make sure you pull up both. So we go through, there's more drivers coming in here. And it's interesting for me to see who's coming in now.
He's jumping back on the rain tires.
Good choice. That's a very good choice, I believe, for Yuki to go back onto the rain tires. Yuki Takanashi, good choice there. Busink is in as well and going through. So, yeah, I'm curious to see how this ends up.
Let's see here. Tom Lane, I want to point out, he has gotten by Brian Hall on those medium slick tires. I would have to assume that Tom Lane and Brian Hall both have to come back in. Daniel Herlock back in 5th place, I don't think is going to have to stop again. He has been in the pits very recently. So is Daniel Kirby, who is our race leader at the moment. So Cameron Barker did have to go into the pits, and he has dropped back quite a bit because of it.
And John Mayer's in the pits right now in that Porsche 963 and is going through. So we'll see for John how he ends up, if he can end up getting back past Scar Pope. Scar Pope has done his final pit stop there. John Mayer now going a lap down to the leaders here. Dan Herlock, Bradley Sellers on your screen, currently trying to just find a way past the GT3s who want to leave side-by-side racing for themselves and just trying to find that way through, snake your way through, play it very, very carefully as we get the Mustangs, the teammates turned enemies down in the bottom right-hand corner. And of course, I'm joking, they're not enemies. They just had a little bit of a love tap in the bus stop, but we keep things moving and grooving as we go here. We are just a handful of laps left as this race continues on. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of racing, but there's not a lot of racing. There's a lot of things left to be decided while the gaps are still spread out just a little bit. But rain is the ultimate equalizer, as it always stands here in racing, Michael. So you always have to remember, when it rains, anything can happen, as Paul is serenading me in my ear with every sort of song lyric he can think of as I say words.
Yeah, I think I heard a little bit of a love shack there for a moment, but yeah, no, everything is definitely going to be coming down to a head here as we get a little closer. We do have quite the field spread, but that is going to be the case when you have 52 laps. When we have 8 laps to go left. Daniel Kirby looks like he has quite the safe space out front. Currently, Daniel Kirby is sitting 26 seconds ahead of his teammate Cameron Barker. So unless something were to happen, I think Daniel Kirby is looking very nicely at the very least at a podium. Daniel Herlock is also still en route. Obviously, he's showing in P4 at the moment, but his goal was a podium, or at least to be in the fight for a podium. Tom Lane ahead of him still has to pit, so that's going to move Daniel Herlock up into 3rd place. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Daniel is able to hold off Bradley Sellers. Right now, he has pushed that gap to about 9 seconds, but just moments ago, it was quite close. So we'll have to see as we take a look at this GT3 battle between the two Mustangs. Once again, this is for 9th place and 10th place between the two teammates, Wayne Galvin and Joe Wilkes, as they allow a hypercar to go through. And everything looks nice and smooth there coming through the boot. And yeah, this is
by the looks of it, this is the closest battle that we have on track at the moment between classes. So,
Yeah,
Yep, go ahead.
it's interesting to me that this is the closest battle, and Tom Lane's into the pits, and Tom Lane is going on the wet tires. So Tom Lane has thrown in the towel, and I can't say I blame him there. Wet tires to the end with just 10 laps remaining. I am not surprised as it goes. I'm looking at that track map in the top right, Michael, and look at just how spread out the entire field has gotten across 61 laps. Of course, in real life, they ran the 6 hours of the Glen. I'm very thankful that we are not running the true to life 6 hours. 60 laps is a good long race, but 6 hours would be real crazy to watch. And real crazy to commentate and run. I mean, not saying I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying that I am very glad we're not doing it here as we go on our run. Wayne Galvin, Joe Wilkes continuing the battle. We got a replay coming up here. We'll see what this replay is. This is going to be down into turn 1. Yeah!
Both got a little loose there. We know it was bussing right there in the back there, but I'm not really sure what caused that. But they both went very wide there, able to collect it, no issues on exit. But definitely a tough day for all these drivers in the turn 1 as we take a look back at that battle between 9th and 10th with Galvin and Wilkes. Looks like these two are kind of settled in here as we see Busick and Micah Locke. Busnick definitely going to hold down this battle here. He's got a 69-second gap back to Michael Locke in second place. Yuka Takanashi 15 seconds up on Busnick. And it looks like Yuki is going to be able to hold on to 9th place. So, yep, we do have quite the field spread going on right now, especially if you look at that track map.
Yeah, as long as nothing too crazy happens, I think we'll be okay. As we have George Angelidis and Eric Monet, the gap 6 seconds between these two, and they're running. So I'm not sure who that is right behind or around George. I think Monet is just now leaving the pits, guessing on my track map. It does look like he is just now leaving the pits here, so that gap will continue to open up. Not only that, but he's on slicks as well. Man, what? Interesting to see that he has chosen the medium tires when even Tom Lane decided to go off the medium tires. If you're running slicks, I respect it. It's a gutsy situation, but, I mean, do what you can here. As Cameron Barker is continuing to set fastest laps here. Cameron Barker, his last lap, fastest lap, 146.4. So he's trying to bring times down. Dan Kirby with a 150. 4 seconds the difference that last lap. And, I mean, he's running 2 seconds faster in the middle sector. Dan Kirby has picked up the pace a little bit. The gap has halved down to 16 seconds. We'll see where things go for that run for the leaders between Kirby and Barker if that gap comes down. Just a handful of laps left, 6 to go, so we'll see. We'll see if Barker can cut out 16 seconds in 6 laps. That's a tall ask, but if he's got fresh enough tires and he's confident enough and traffic stays out of his way, anything's possible here at the Glen.
Yeah, I mean, if he's got a 4-second lap advantage, that's definitely going to come down to very, very close at the very least. I think Barker looks like he might have quite the pace advantage, so it's actually going to be a lot closer than I had originally thought a few laps ago. But like you said, he has made that gap come from 30 seconds down to about 14 seconds at the moment. So we'll see if there's enough time, but he's definitely got the pace in him. I'm going to jump onto another play. This is Ryan Hall we're riding along on Bussink, and Ryan Hall just didn't have the grip, and Bussink just kind of lost the rear end. So 2 separate incidents at the same corner. They're very interesting to see it happen, but like we've said, turn 1 has just been an absolute battle from the very get-go of this race.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me there. And Luke Goodlife not having the good life, the good day, or the good run in New York with concrete jungles and tomatoes as Luke Goodlife has been our most recent DNF here. As we go and we watch Joe Wilkes and Wayne Galvin, the GT3 Mustang team, continue to run through. Bussink is in the pits, I believe, going through, and this is going to be Goodlife here. Or no, this is Bussink, and Bussink with a big snap there of the rear end of the car goes around. Thankfully, does not get into a wall and is able to keep the car going here as we go through. Wilkes and Galvin have a Porsche for company there in the middle, but it does not look like that is a pass for position. They're going to let him go and let him run through and keep moving. 5 laps left to go here at the Glen, and I will tell you right now, the gap, 10.5 seconds up front. Cameron Barker taking out 5 seconds the lap before and another 3 seconds on the last lap. 149.6 to a 146.1. So either Dan Kirby is doing some mad saving to get to the end. I don't know what Dan Kirby's plan is here. Either he's doing some mad saving or he's been dealing with a lot of traffic as Cameron Barker is getting ready to come up on that Mustang GT3 battle that we were watching a little bit ago. We'll see how he negotiates this, but Cameron Barker is a man on a mission for a win here at the Glen.
Yeah, Cameron Barker absolutely jumping into the time here. Down to 9 seconds. Coming up on the back, like you said, to these Mustangs here, so it's going to be very interesting to see if he's able to navigate this very easily. But the Mustangs have been separated by the Porsche quite a bit, so it might be a little bit easier for him as we see him coming into the last corner, turn 11. He's going to get the inside there of the first Mustang. I believe that was Wilkes. Coming up on the battle between the Porsche and the Mustang, and it looks like Cameron... Ooh, this is going to be tough here. Oh, man, that was very brave. But he's going to be able to get by here. He lost a little bit of time because of that, but able to get through without any sort of incident. But very, very close between him and that Porsche right there. So we'll have to see what else is going on. But Joe Wilkes has gotten past Wayne Galvin, so that is very interesting to see. The two of them have come back together, so that gap was up to 2 seconds just moments ago, but is down to 1 second now. And we'll have to take a look and see what else we have going on. But at the moment, Cameron Barker is really chopping into the lead. Daniel Kirby has 8.5 seconds now.
Before you're even done with your sentence, it's 8 seconds. I mean, they're continuing to chop those times down and keep things going. Wilkes and Galvin battling out here through the little bit. And I believe that is Pierre Moreno there ahead. We do think that Wilkes and Galvin just kind of called team orders and swap positions. We'll see if we can confirm that here shortly as this goes on. Barker, before I can even finish my sentence, has taken out another 2 seconds on Kirby. The gap now 6 seconds. So in a matter of moments, probably by the time we're done with this replay, that gap is going to be a rate of nothing here. And here's the Mustangs coming down the main straight. This is probably, and as I say probably, it actually is, this is where Galvin got through there with Wilkes and got around. It looks like nothing too crazy there. And this was actually when our race leader was coming through. Yeah, it does look like he let him pass and just kind of said, you know what, no problems, I'll let him through. And once we come out of this replay, gap 5 seconds, 5 laps remaining on the ticker as it goes with Kirby and Barker.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see if he has enough time to catch up. And it looks like he's going to just do so, but catching up and passing are two different things. We've seen Kirby and Barker just absolutely fighting tooth and nail already today. They are teammates, but we're going to go ahead and take a look at a rally. Oh, just off there. That was Bassick again, just taking to the grass. I know quite a few Peugeots that like to go rallying, but that Hypercar is not one of them.
Yeah, that was a big run from Bussink there off. Here's Dan Kirby just trying to... Whoa! No! Oh, if you are a GT3, you don't want to do that to the overall leader. Barker there. Oh, my gosh. No, that was Cameron Barker, not Kirby. I thought that was Kirby we were watching, but no, that is Cameron Barker trying to work his way through traffic to get to Dan Kirby. The gap now 3.8 seconds. You can see as he works traffic, it is slowing him way up, but he's putting in the performance nonetheless to try to get the pass done. As we have George and Monet in the bottom right here of your screen that are battling and trying to find their way through and settle that battle. So everybody said, you know what, there's a few laps left, let's just go ahead and set off the fireworks.
Yeah, it's nice to see all these cars kind of come back together here at the end of the race. We did have a bit of a lull there, obviously, field spread and everything, but these two battles are extremely tight here. George Angelidis and Eric Monet just absolutely duking it out between the two of them. We see Cameron Barker really cutting that gap down, but I just don't know if he's going to have the time to not only catch up, but to get by his teammate.
Well, and the thing is, the thing with that is, if Dan Kirby has saved anything in the tank, as soon as Cameron Barker gets up there, he's going to just dump it and go and release. Gap 4 seconds now up in the front as we saw Kirby and Tom Lane go, and now we've got George Angelidis back on your screen, and they are going to continue to battle at 58 of 61 here, and the gap now down to 3 seconds for the race lead as they go.
What happened there? They were battling for third place, and now he's out of the pits now, but he dumped into the pits. Did Monet have a penalty that he had to serve?
I don't know. I don't show that Monet was in the pits, so I'm not sure what happened there.
No?
Yeah, no,
I must have seen something weird on the timing board, because it looked like Eric Monet had gone into the pits, but I guess I was incorrect there. My apologies.
Yeah, no, because here is Angelidis and Monet battling.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know what I saw then.
Somebody went in the pits, though. I'm not sure who. Yeah, we've had another DNF here as we go. Lap 58 of 61. We'll see where things go for this run. They got 2 seconds between Kirby and Barker and is continuing to close up. Yeah, it's
battles all over the track right now. We're following along here. This is for third and fourth in the Hypercar AM battle. Eric Monet did get around George Angelidis, so we'll have to see if that battle stays the way it is. There is a little bit of a traffic involved there, but like you said, that gap up front down to 2 seconds. Kirby and Barker absolutely going to be coming together, but I'm just not sure Cameron Barker has the time. We see him coming through the bus stop here, and it looks like it's down under 2 seconds, 1.7 seconds, 1.8 seconds, but it's going to be tough. Not only does he have to catch him, but he's got to pass him. You know, those are two totally different objectives here, as we see a little bit of traffic as we see is one of the Bice brothers coming through in the GT3 cars and the Corvettes.
This is going to be a close one all the way to the end here for Barker and Kirby. It's going to really just come down to a last lap lunge, I feel. We'll see how things go as we watch this battle continue to develop off. The rain's gone. There's nothing crazy going on at this point. It is genuinely just a matter of seeing what happens with them. I am showing that George Angelidis has had to bow out of his battle into the pits. So I think George Angelidis possibly just running a little short on fuel there into the pits we see, but now we go through, and here is where this starts. Dan Kirby and Cameron Barker. This is the battle. This is the battle lap 60 of 61. 2 laps to go, and you see Cameron Barker, he dived over. He was trying to find a little bit of wet tarmac to cool those wet tires off. And now as we run through, we'll see what happens for them as we go up through the S's. We're going to be going down this straight into the bus stop. Does he dare for a lunge in the bus stop? I think he does, and he goes through. No, he's going to go single file. Remember, these are teammates, and as we've been told, the rule is respect. However, when you're racing for the win at the end of a 60-lap race, sometimes things get a little gutsy here as we run down the chute.
Yeah, following along in the bottom corner here, we got flipped on me. Following along in the main screen, we are on board with Cameron Barker. We had it flipped there for a moment, but Paul's always keeping me on my toes. We're coming up into the boot, you can see the dry line is very, very, very dry, but Cameron Barker is trying to jump offline here to get a little bit of that wetness back on those tires. And it's just going to be a last lap lunge, like you said. I think that's going to be the only way for Cameron Barker, because even though he's caught him, these two teammates have to respect each other. They have to, give enough space, but keep those elbows out at the same time. It's going to be tough for Cameron, I think, here to get past, not only past him, but past cleanly Daniel Kirby. But we've seen crazier things happen as he gets a great run out of turn 10 there into 11. We see a little bit of lap traffic ahead of us, and this is going to be very dicey coming into turn 1 as we see Cameron Barker is going down to the inside, but he's just a little bit too far back.
Yeah, he tries to make
final lap.
White flag is out. He tried to make it happen. He's got just 11 more corners to go for the pass. You see a little bit of a checkup there coming in from Daniel Kirby. Cameron Barker having to be really, really defensive on that. That's opened up the gap. The rain's starting to come back. I do want to point out that some of those drivers on the dry tires have had pretty quick laps through. Michael Locke and Eric Monet still on dry tires, but I think it was just too late for them to take advantage. They tried to pull the Ferrari Le Mans strategy and just suffer out on the dries, and they couldn't. Now here we go. There's a hypercar ahead of Daniel Kirby and Cameron Barker. Cameron Barker trying to look wide. Daniel Kirby is going to hold it there. Who is that hypercar ahead? As you see Cameron Barker deep on the brakes trying to find the run. This is going to be down through the boot. I believe that is George Angelides ahead. Possibly. It might be Moynet ahead as we run up the hill here. This is where you've got to really have the traction and make your pick through the heel. And now you're going to hook here hard on through the slipstream. This is going to be your last chance. He's got to lunge it up into the right-hander. And can he make it stick? This is the heel. And no, he does not have it through. Cameron Barker. Dan Kirby is making that Porsche car as wide as the Watkins-Glen Raceway. As you cut the left-hander of turn 9 here, you've got just a couple more moments to try to make this pass happen. As we run down, Daniel Kirby, Cameron Barker, this is where you're at. Down into turn 10, hold the brakes, watch the GT3 to the inside. There's a GT3 that's trying to get in the mix. He needs to stay out of the way. He goes through Cameron Barker. This will be the run to the line. It's white flag out. It's around. Who wins? As we come across the line, it is going to be Daniel Kirby to Cameron Barker. And there it is across the line. And it is Daniel Kirby by 1/10 of a second over his teammate. Cameron Barker wins 60 laps of the Glen here in the VWSC.
We got a very tight battle here. Pope and Mayer within a second of each other.
And they're going to come across the line. Scar Pope.
Taking the AMs.
Very
Scar
good
Pope
run.
your AMs there. Jumping
And then,
back here, we see Wilkes.
So Benika's already been across for the GT3s. And then this is Joe Wilkes battling through. I think LePetri has already crossed as well, possibly for the GT3 AMs. I'm trying to see where LePetri is on track as it stands. Joe Wilkes here still defending through. I mean, you've still got battles to finish out. Look at this, Joe Wilkes in the big battle. And man, it's been a race.
Yeah, this has been an absolutely stunning race. We've seen battles all the way up and down the field. We've seen plenty of GT3 cars getting in the way of hypercars. Hypercars having to, take very strange ways around the track. But that's just the nature of the beast when it comes to endurance racing like this. When you have multiple different cars on track. But this has been an absolutely stunning battle up through the field. Daniel Kirby, though, Cameron Barker absolutely crushing it up front. Just 78, 79 seconds ahead of Daniel Herlock and just absolutely obliterating the field. But Daniel Kirby coming away with the victory.
Yeah, and those CMS Pro drivers are going to be very, very satisfied with the position they find themselves in. As you pointed out, 78, 79 seconds ahead of Herlock there. Kirby and Barker, great race all the way to the end. Barker tried to find the run there near the end and just couldn't get that through. But CMS Pros, P1, P2 on the day overall. I mean, great run that they go through here as we wait on our last few cars to cross the start-finish line here to finish things up. I mean, great battles all the way around. That was Tom Lane that was around there when our camera cut. Trying to see if there is anyone else on track. I don't believe so. So we'll give you the results momentarily, because what was really interesting for me was the way the rain ran through, and here are your race results. Daniel Kirby and Cameron Barker, the CMS Pro Porsches, doing very, very well for P1, P2. They're representing CMS Pro Porsches very, very well. Dan Herlock with Smile Power Racing in the Isota in P3 overall. And then Bradley Sellers in the 9x8 in P4. Tom Lane there in 5th place. Then it was Brian Hall. Scar Pope is going to be your winner of the Hypercar AMS with a very good run in the Isota. And then John Mayer running there in P8. Troy Uyen representing very, very well the Uyens in P9, and Ernest Bonaldo there in P10. And then we continue on from your top 10. P11, Yuki Takanashi doing very well. Eric Mornay showing as a DNF, so something happened there right at the end for him. George Angelides P13, Michael Locke P14, Aliko Busanek in P15, Jason Whited in P16, Eduardo Benica in P17, David Junt, JT Tammy, and Kataranakis rounding out your top 20. Your winner, of course, Benica in the GT3s. And then going from there, we'll go to P21, which is Ross Smith himself, James Walker, Robert Strachan, and Josh LePetri is your winner of the GT3 AMS. Then we got another hypercar of Jerry Chin down in 25th overall. Moreno in P26, Matthew Bias in 27th, Joe Wilkes in 28th, Adrian Rice in 29th, and Gilles Lalonde in P30. And then from there, we'll go to P31, which was Wayne Galvin, that Mustang battle that we watched for a while. Johnny Gutierrez in 32nd, Jamie Zalecki in 33rd, Stephen Bice in 34th, William Schlichting in P35, Stephen Miller in 36th, and Mike Bice in 37th. And then from there, it's all of the DNFs. Luke Goodlife, Timon Subic, Ben Kesby, and there is another list. So hold on just momentarily, and we'll pull up the last list for you, because there were a few more DNFs beyond that. 47 cars today. And there we go. Craig Pullen, Norm Graff, Daniel Scott, Benjamin Porteous Heath, and James Bowders, all of our DNFs today. So 45 cars scored in this event and a handful of DNFs, but I think the talk is going to be on that last lap for the entirety of the time.
Yeah, that was definitely a very, very, very tight last lap battle between Kirby and Barker. And we saw a couple other battles throughout the field as well. But between the two teammates at the CMS Pros, man, they have just absolutely put on a show tonight. Very clean racing between the two of them, obviously, as their teammates. But, you know, if you're Cameron Barker, you got to be scratching your head a little bit. You know you had the pace, just couldn't quite get it done. But he's still got to be happy with that P2 finish.
Yeah, P2 overall in a 60-lap race in tricky mixed conditions. I mean, you have to be happy with that all the way through. And we'll give our drivers a moment to kind of cool down and talk before we start pulling people in to talk to them. Of course, we'll talk to the winners of each class and see how things go. And again, I'll say, if this is your first time here watching the VWSC, of course, there's the moderns, there's the historics, and then there's NARS on Thursday nights. So make sure that you jump in and you like, subscribe, ring the bells, do all of the fun things to support Champion Sim Racing and the JP Broadcasting Network. So we keep bringing you all this good racing here. Herlock 39 seconds behind in the end, and not I don't think 39 seconds across a 60-lap race is bad, though, to be honest. I think that's pretty respectable.
Herlock had a very, very, very solid race, especially since he was just looking to be in competition for a podium. He got third place. He got right there, and he wasn't too far off the leaders. Excellent decision. Excellent race there by Daniel Herlock.
Absolutely, and I do want to point out Dan Herlock was up 15 places on the day. Bradley Sellers was up 10. Tom Lane was up 39 places, according to my timing sheets. So huge gains being made there for them, and huge gains all the way around for many, many drivers. Yeah, we'll go ahead and let's start out with our overall driver here, Daniel Kirby, who... I don't know how wide a Porsche hypercar is supposed to be, Daniel, If you would like to inform me of the width of your car and the width of Watkins Glen, I'm sure it's the same number at this point. Mega defensive run from you. Started on pole, qualified with a 141.9, and then held the fastest lap, ran through. I mean, led 51 laps overall. How do you feel?
Tired. That was really close at the end there. I kind of screwed myself by not taking tires in that last stint apparently. So yeah, that came down like a tenth of a second at the line or something.
Did you think it was going to be that close? Like, what went into your decision to not take tires?
I think I just saw the gap back to like third place, and I was like, screw it. I'm probably just safe to stay on the same set of tires. But that was not the case.
Do you think you got lucky that P2 was your teammate? Was there any sort of like conversation there between teammates of, hey, please don't wreck me? Or kind of, was it one of those that you know how he races, so you knew how to defend it? Kind of talk me through that last lap battle.
Yeah, honestly, it's probably, I think he could have got me if he really, really wanted to. Especially, I think it was the last lap. Somewhere in the boot, he was like going for a move, but I think he backed out of it the last second. So honestly, it's kind of thanks to Cameron for being my teammate for kind of giving me that one after I screwed that.
I wouldn't say you screwed it. You still had a good race overall, running things through. You still won. So even if you doesn't feel as great, you still won. So you have that going for you. But Dan, anyone you want to thank? Anyone you want to shout out before we let you go and let you go celebrate your Watkins Glen win?
Yeah, our teammate John. It would have been, he got sick apparently. Would have been nice to have 3 cars up here, but we'll see next time. We'll have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations, and we will see you at the next one, Dan. Congrats.
See you guys.
All right, and then from there, let's find our Hypercar AM winner, who was the one and only Scar Pope. Scar Pope, winner of the Hypercar AMs, running through up 2 places on the day in the Minnesota. How does it feel to win at the Glen?
Damn good. Cheers, guys. Yeah, it was great fun. I had some awesome battles there. A lot of fun.
Yeah, you were in the mix of a lot of different battles, and the conditions seemed really tricky. So how did you feel about racing in the mixed conditions? Was it something that you like? Is it something that, you don't prefer? I know every driver has their preference of rain.
It really depends if I've got the setup for it. If I've got a setup, I really love it. I love the strategies that were out there. People were on slicks when I was on wets, and that middle stint, those 20 laps, I knew the slicks were better, and I was just about to go to them, and then it starts raining again, and I'm like, nah, I'm sticking to these. So in answer to the question, absolutely love it.
I know it was a competitive run out there, and I'm gonna ask you, how was carving your way through traffic and trying to hold your lead? I know there were some scary moments, at least for us watching, between hypercars trying to go around GT3s. How was it for you in the car?
The scariest thing is the closing distance, and there's like 4 places around the track where it's 3 corners of one line in the wet. So I don't know how the people on slicks were doing it, but yeah, it was touch and go in places, but not overly stressful. Had no major incidents on my end. Just there was one time going out of the toe, going up that straight to the hill there, and just I had to go off into the grass because 2 GTs were in a battle at the time, and I was just like, oh, 3 wide? No, there's grass.
Yeah, it was fun to watch from our side, and there were nail biting moments, I will tell you that. So it was fun to watch. But Scar, you got any? Also, last question, Scar, is your actual name Scar Pope, or is it short for something?
It's my real name. It's what's on Depot. I changed it years ago. The Pope is my grandmother's name because I had the closest relationship to her. and Scar was a long-term nickname, so I just went put that out there rather than my birth name, which was crap, to be honest. So that's been my name for about 5-10 years now, I think. Yeah, 8 probably.
Fair enough. We were curious if it was or if it was a nickname or what it was. But Scar, you got anyone you want to thank or anyone you want to shout out before we let you go for the evening?
CMS for putting this on, you guys for commentating, and all the other drivers for making it an awesome experience. Thanks to all.
Awesome, and thank you, and we'll see you at the next one.
Cheers, guys.
All right, and let's see. And let's see if we can find our next driver here, if they are floating around for our GT3 winners, Mr. Eduardo Benica. Eduardo Benica, it was not a simple day to be a GT3, was it?
Yeah, man, that was a tough race.
How scary is it to be a GT3 driver in the rain and have hypercars flying around you here at Watkins Glen?
Well, man, it's difficult to describe, but I think I was so concentrating save the tires and not overheat that I simply abstracted the hypercars in this process.
Yeah, and watching through it seems like did you ever feel like it was time for dry tires? I know some of the hypercars kind of made the decision to try dry tires at a couple of points. Did you ever consider the swap over into dries, or did you just say, you know what, I'm just going to make the wet stick to the end?
Well, at some point at the end, I consider it, but it was in the last stint already. We read, I think we had less than 10 laps to finish. So the time we lost would not compensate the situation. So I ended up just keeping what I'm doing and take a look at the tires to not overheat.
Absolutely. It was a good run, Eduardo, to watch. There were a couple of hairy moments for everyone, but of course, Watkins Glen in the rain is never easy. But anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out before we let you go tonight?
Yeah, I want to thank my teammate Vasilis for his good race. We did 1-2 on the start, and in the end he finished in 4th. A good result for the team. Eugene could not participate today. He's traveling now, but probably for the next race he'll be with us. And besides that, I want to thank you, William. He's a personal friend who's started to race together with us recently. He's a good guy and finisher. I thought he had a problem with connection and finished 5th or behind. I don't remember now. And that's it.
Awesome, and congratulations on your win, Eduardo. We will see you at the next race, okay?
Okay, guys. Thank you for the broadcast, and everything you're doing is a great event for everyone here. Thank you.
Awesome, and thank you. All right, and then last but not least was our GT3 AM winner, which I'm trying to double check myself and make sure I'm not wrong on who it was, because for some reason my results have closed out, and even though the race just happened 5 minutes ago, my brain is telling me nothing. So when I look at our GT3 AM winner, LePetri, where is LePetri? Let's see if we can find him here. I don't see him anywhere. So I don't see him anywhere. So let's see. I think. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly where he's at. I see Stephen Miller's floating around though. Should we have a chat with Stephen Miller, even though he didn't win? Yeah, let's grab Stephen Miller for a second. And Stephen, good evening, my friend. Even though you weren't the winner of the GT3 AMs, we see you floating around, so we thought we'd grab you anyways. How was Watkins Glen for you?
Watkins Glen for me wasn't that great, but I'm here to represent Josh. His cat unhooked his computer, so he can't come to the interview.
Oh my gosh.
After the end of the race. Anyways, Josh did a great job to win. He led from led quite a bit of the race, and we're really at Speed Details, Fudakiko Sim Pals. We're really proud of the effort that he put in today to get a first place in our class. So that's good. That's good for our team, and I think good for the season.
At least the cat unplugged the PC after the race.
That's true. That's a good thing.
Man, and how did you all handle the conditions as a team? You know, when you have like the big team running, do you all share a lot of data back and forth with each other?
Oh yeah, but beforehand, not during the race. We were concerned because at the start, at the pit stop or the pit box check, we were together in the same pit, and we were wondering how that was going to work. But we were allowed to verbally communicate to each other. But it turned out it didn't matter because I got turfed off the road at the first corner by I think I got hit by 3 cars. So I was had to make a pit stop for repairs, and then that put us out of sequence, so it didn't matter in the end.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch all the way around for everyone. I'm going to ask you the question I would have asked Josh. If you're the class leader and you have, hypercars coming around, how nervous does it make you sometimes as a GT3?
Hypercars always make me nervous because you never really know what they're going to do, because some of them take very big risks, and they don't wait for the space sometimes to. I mean, the easiest place for us to let them pass is on the straightaway, but sometimes they don't want to wait that long, so they'll try and squeeze their way through. But yeah, you got to. In a GT, you got to be looking out the back of your head as well as the front. It's a back and forth thing the whole race, so that can make it tiring too. It's just a sequence you have to get into after you've done a couple of seasons of this. Is you look here, you look there, you look forward, you look back, you look sideways. You're always looking all over the place to make sure what the others are doing.
Well, your teammate did a very, very good job of that, and of course brought home the GT3 AM win. On his behalf, anyone you all want to thank or shout out before we let you go?
Oh, well, just the rest of our team, Yuki, Takanashi, Becky, Ely, and Josh, and myself. We're the guys in the team, and we work together to try and do our best, because that's all you can do in the end.
Awesome. Well, I would say that earning a class win is a very, very good way to run that.
Oh,
so
yes.
Congratulations.
GT3M is really, really tough this year.
It has been very competitive, so congratulations on the win, Steven, and we'll let you go celebrate with your teammate once his PC comes back up.
Sure. Okay, great. Thanks very much. Just a quick word in for our sponsor, Speed Details.
Awesome, and thank you, and we'll see you at the next one.
Okay, bye.
You know what? I think that's the first time I've heard of a cat waiting until the end of a race to unplug a PC. Usually they would do that right in the middle.
Yeah, he's definitely very lucky that he got through the whole entire race. So, I mean, yeah, a missed interview is a missed interview, but thankfully he didn't have that issue anywhere before the race ended.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, it's been a challenging race all the way through with rain, with different, changing track conditions. You have the chaos of GT3 to hypercar on a narrow circuit. What are your final thoughts before we sign this one out for the night?
Well, I want to say that obviously the on-track action was great. The way that these drivers were able to manage these changing and very treacherous conditions was awesome. But I want to give a shout out to Storm Gang, and just like the work that they do with these cars is just absolutely phenomenal. And I just can't, every time I see one of these VWSC races and CMS the CMS racing, it's mind-boggling how well they're able to just put these leagues together, and just they do such an amazing job.
Absolutely. It's always amazing to watch. And remember, if you want to get involved, check out the CMS Discord. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, ring the bells, do everything to support us here. CMSRacing.com is where you can get all the information on the fun behind the scenes of what Storm Gang Simulation has been working on. And of course, their website, stormgangsimulation.com. But on behalf of Mr. Paul Glover, the wonderful man who brings you all of the wonderful action on track and brings in the little bit of chaos for Mr. James Parfit in his brain. And on behalf of Michael David, his first time here filling in with CMS, and it's been quite fun to have you. My name is Bradley Dalton. We've taken you start to finish here for this round. Be sure to join us next time where we'll take you start to finish yet again. And good night.